Let me tell you what my deep research and basically vision is.
I hope there's Bigfoot. I don't think there is.
I'm not telling you nothing.
The aliens won't let it happen.
Happening now, breaking.
Bernie Sanders is angry.
Bears beats Battlestar Galactica.
What are the tips? Give me some tips on how to work with Wes Anderson.
Be ready to speak very fast and very clearly, because that's definitely one key thing.
I will only tell the truth. I will only
Until you and 6 kids you barely know in wet bathing suits have surrounded 9 chimpanzees outside of a Wendy's. You probably really don't know yourself, okay?
Yep. And we back.
Hello and welcome. You're listening to your new favorite podcast and the best in political, sports, and paranormal news coverage. I'm your host, Wes Anderson, and this is In the Shed. This is episode 25, so whether you're coming back for more or finding us for the first time this week, hey, thanks for tuning in. It's late Wednesday night, October 6th, and I am in a shed in the backyard of my home in Alabama, also I can hang out with you tools and talk about the latest headlines, stories, and rumors in the world of politics, sports, and the paranormal. We did it, my babies. We did it, my tools. This is episode 25. Congratulations to you for helping us make it this far. I don't know. I thought maybe we would get to episode 2. I had a lot of doubt on whether or not we would make it to episode 2. But here we are at episode 25. We are global. We're international. We're heard all over the world in 15 countries. And we got a small band of people that listen to every episode, but we are growing all because of you. So I want to say thank you to you. And also, on Twitter this week, I put out a poll. I said, am I a journalist? And 71% of you, my people, said yes, you are. So I accept the mantle. I am proud to be a journalist. And we got a great show for you tonight. We have a guest with us tonight who is a dear friend of mine and of the show. He is a college student who goes to UAB in Birmingham, Alabama. His name is Joshua Teasley. He is someone that has a depth of knowledge from North Korea to the moon landing and everything in between. He's joining us by phone here in the shed tonight. Joshua, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Is there anything that the people need to know about you before we jump into the episode?
Well, you know, it's funny that you mentioned about my vast knowledge about so many different things. You mentioned North Korea and space, and especially the moon landing. I actually have a poster up of the moon landing right behind me. And on the other wall, I actually have a flag with Kim Jong-un that says, "Live, laugh, love." So, if that says anything...
I don't know what it says, though, is the thing. What does that say?
You know, it says that I spent $15 in the best way that I possibly could have.
You don't regret that purchase at all.
Oh, this is easily the height of capitalism. This is the greatest purchase that has ever been made.
It's funny because I saw you had posted a picture of that online, and I was looking at it, and I was like, you know, if you didn't know who Kim Jong-un was, if you just saw this, you would be like, oh, look at this happy Asian man. Live, laugh, love. What an encouraging poster. But it's not so encouraging.
You know, it's encouraging if you buy into the North Korean propaganda.
Yeah.
So,
I once read that Kim Jong-un played golf, and did you know he got 18 hole-in-ones?
I did.
Yeah, it's
did
impressive.
You know that his father invented the hamburger?
That's impressive. I did not know that, no. Maybe we'll have you back one day for an episode entirely on North Korean propaganda. How about that?
I am perfectly ready for that.
Well, we don't have any comments or corrections this week. We don't have time for that since we do have a guest. But if you have any thoughts that you'd like to share, you can email the show at intheshedwithwes@gmail.com. Again, that's intheshedwithwes@gmail.com. I might even read it on air. Joshua, anytime that we have a guest on the show, there's a game that we like to play. It actually has been ripped off, believe it or not. I do not know how, because there are only about 60 people tuning in right now, or when this airs for the first day or so. But somehow this game has been ripped off. It's a game that we invented called Cap or Dap. Are you down to play?
I am down to play.
All right, how it works is I will read 10 statements to you. If you agree that this statement is true, you will say Dap. You will give that statement some Dap. If you think the statement is false, you will say Cap. That is a lie. That is not something that is true. And feel free to explain your reasoning and why you have come to the conclusion that you have. So Cap or Dap. Number 1, Donald Trump will run for president in 2024. Cap or Dap?
Dap.
Dap. Why Dap?
There is no way that he's not going to try to run again. He will never give up. And this is not, let me preface this by saying that this is not a support, this is not an endorsement of Donald Trump. I'm just saying, given his record, there is no way that he's going to lose an election and then not try and run again. And
right.
Let's say that he were to lose in 2024. He will run until he wins or until he cannot run anymore.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards a Dap also on that one. I did not think that he would run again. I really did not. But the more time passes, he's already visited Iowa. He's making visits as though he's preparing for another run.
He's still doing rallies.
He is, even though we're 2 years out. And the Republican Party, like it or not, they are in bed with this man, and they are beholden to him in a lot of ways. There aren't very many people in that party that are able to kind of stand up and distance themselves from him. And those who have tried, it hasn't worked out well for them. So I would not be surprised if he did run again. Number 2, Cap or Dap, the Alabama Crimson Tide win the national championship this season.
I got to say Dap.
Dap again. Why do you think they will win?
Because it's Alabama.
Because it's Alabama. See, Joshua, if you do not know, which you do not if you're listening to this, other than if you are his parents, shout out to Mama Sherry and Papa T. Joshua is a big Alabama Crimson Tide football fan, and I am not. We know that. But I will have to agree with you. I will say Dap. And we'll get to this a little later in the show, but Alabama's dominance is a topic of discussion on our show today. They put it on Ole Miss this last week, and that was supposed to be their first competitive game, and it was not. It was not. So I agree with you. I think that they probably will win again. Number 3, Cap or Dap, you have seen one full episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Be honest. Cap. You've never watched a full episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians.
I know that I have seen like random stupid clips online.
Of
just
course.
Like where people turn it into a meme. But
Yeah.
I have never once watched an episode. I can't have seen more than like 5 minutes of total of like all the clips that I've seen. I can't have seen more than 5 minutes of the show.
And you're being honest.
100% honest on that one.
Oh man, I wish I could. I wish I could say the same. Up until like the last 2 seasons, I think I had seen every episode of the show that they've ever made. And it's
Is it one of those guilty pleasures? Like it's like a train wreck, you just can't look away?
I don't even know if I can say it's a pleasure. I definitely agree with the guilty part. It's one of those things where you have those shows that you turn on that are completely mindless, where you don't even really have to pay attention. You just sort of absorb it by osmosis. That's what Keeping Up with the Kardashians was for me. Is I would just it would be on TV all the time, reruns and stuff, and I wouldn't have nothing to do. I'd be working on schoolwork, or I'd be trying to put something together for my job. I just have it on in the background. I've seen a lot of it. Thankfully, in the last couple years, I have gotten away from that, and I think they're in their last season. So praise the Lord for that one. Okay, number 4, Cap or Dap. There is intelligent life outside of Earth.
You can get into that, and I can immediately say Dap. There is no way that there is not life somewhere else in the universe.
So what makes you so confident?
Because if you look at just how big the universe is,
right,
the chance of us being the only life is not possible.
Yeah. I had my Meemaw on the show. I don't know if you heard that episode. I think it was episode 10.
I never heard that episode, but I remember you telling me about it.
You got to go back. Episode 10. She was only on for a segment. I couldn't convince her to do the full 2-hour show. But we did Cap or Dap with Meemaw, and I asked her this question, and she said, Cap, because a lot of times there's not even intelligent life on Earth. I thought that was pretty funny.
That's a very valid point.
I think so, but I do agree with you.
We get to find intelligent life in a way.
Yes, but I do agree with you. I'm saying Dap 100%. I mean, maybe not 100, but 90%. I'm pretty sure that we aren't the only ones. There's got to be some form of life somewhere. I agree. The galaxies.
I think you would find it's called the Fermi paradox really interesting.
Yes.
I'm not going to go into it, but it's basically just that the universe is so big that we should have encountered aliens by now, and it's so old that we should have encountered aliens by now, but we haven't.
Hey, but maybe we have, though, also. Maybe we have. I don't know. I'm just saying. Number 5, Cap or Dap. Joe Biden really actually got a COVID booster shot on live TV. Dap. Why do you say Dap?
Because I see no reason. The thing is, if they were to fake that and that were to get out,
it would be bad.
It would be bad. 2, I trust the science behind it. I trust the vaccines. I'm fully vaccinated.
Me too.
I have no reason to think that that there's any reason to not trust them.
Right.
So I have no reason to think that he would not have gotten a booster.
Yeah, and I'm with you about the vaccines. I said on last episode, my family and I are fully vaccinated. I have a cousin, my first cousin, Abby. Shout out to Abby. She is a trauma nurse, and she and all the nurses on her floor, when this thing first got released for public use, they did an in-depth research, and she was on me, but way before I took it, saying, I promise this is safe, this is a good thing, it has been tested, it's going to help. I was a little slow, not for any reason other than just making time to go get it. But we got the vaccine. We wanted to protect my mom, who is immunocompromised. I wanted to be around my grandparents. I come in contact with people of all ages all the time through work. So we did too. However, I kind of lean towards Cap on this one. And I'm not exactly, although I do enjoy conspiracy theories, I'm not really a conspiracy theorist at heart. But my thing is, and it's a small chance, but if there was any chance that the president of the United States could have an adverse reaction health-wise, why in the world would they put that on live TV? So, I mean, if you saw the man's face, the facial expressions that Joe Biden made when he got this shot was hilarious, first of all. His approval rating is not hilarious. It's at 38% today, which is the lowest it's been in all of his presidency. But I don't know. I kind of think that maybe they gave him the placebo on live TV and then gave him the real booster afterwards. Like, I just have a hard time believing that they're going to put the live action shot of him getting the dose on TV, because what if he got lightheaded and passed out? Then you have like 30 million Americans that don't want to take the booster shot. That's just, I don't know. I have a hard time believing
that does make sense. I guess the way that I was more thinking about that question was, did he get the booster at all?
Right.
And I 100% believe he got the booster. But I see what you're saying, like, with his age, and I mean, we don't have to go into much when we're talking about Joe Biden being old. That would make a little more sense, because you don't know what's going to happen. And could you imagine if the president of the United States passed out on live TV?
Listen, Fat. Yeah, no, I think he got it for sure. I'm not saying they lied about it. I just think that what they did on camera was probably staged, and then either before or after because even when I went to get the shot, they asked you to stay for 15 minutes just to make sure, So I just have a hard time believing they're gonna put that on TV. So I'm gonna go Cap on that one. Number 6, Cap or Dap. Bigfoot is real.
Ooh. Okay. So if you had asked me a couple of years ago, I would have immediately said Dap.
But now?
I honestly don't know if I can say Cap or Dap on that one, because I'm on the fence about it. There is some things that just point to Bigfoot being real. There's also some things that point to Bigfoot being fake. Like if you take it's called the Patterson-Gimlin footage. It's the most famous video of Bigfoot supposedly walking, arms swinging. Everybody and their brother has seen that video.
I guarantee if people listen to this show, they are familiar with that for sure.
Okay. So, interesting fact about that. The History Channel used to run a show called Monster Quest. And I know I've talked to you
Love
about
that
this
show.
before, just not on here.
Love it.
And they tried to recreate, because like the common like objection to it is that it's a man in a monkey suit.
Monkey suit. That's what they say.
So they had somebody go into, it was like a motion capture kind of thing,
Right.
and they put different like markers or lights on the different, like on each of the guy's joints, and they tried to get him into the same position that the thing in the video was in, and they found that they could not get him into a position that he could sustain walking like that.
Plus,
So they could not recreate it 100%.
Plus, I can't get graphic because this is a family show. I say that every week. I think probably my youngest listeners are like probably 17 or 18, but still, it's a family show. But it was a female in the video, and there were some features that are specific to females that would be hard to fake.
Yes.
For sure. But if you had to lean, you might not be able to say definitively, but are you leaning more towards DAP?
You know, given all the other evidence that we're not going to get into, I'm going to have to lean towards DAP. I think there's a better chance that it is real than it isn't real.
So would you say, and I know this isn't a whole episode about Bigfoot, we could talk about this for 2 hours also, but would you say, what would your best guess be as far as what Bigfoot would be? Are we talking like some type of undiscovered ape that is prevalent here in North America? Are we talking some type of interdimensional being? That's one theory that I've heard a lot recently. How would you explain Bigfoot?
I think that Bigfoot would be some species of undiscovered ape.
Yeah.
North America is the only continent without any primates besides humans.
Which is crazy.
And I really do think that it could be that's what Bigfoot would definitely be, just an undiscovered primate in very, very low populations.
Yeah, and if you're looking at like even almost every Native American tribe throughout North America, they have their own stories about the wild man or about this ape-like creature. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. I would say DAP, and I say DAP kind of like it's more of a hopeful DAP because I think that it would be really neat. I love to learn and hear, and there's so many eyewitness testimonies and different stories. I'm actually reading a book right now. I wish I remembered the title. I just started. I'm on like chapter 3. It's called something like Sasquatch Definitive Evidence or something like that, and it just runs through a bunch of these famous stories like the Patterson-Gimlin film, and it's very interesting. It's with a guy that has bona fide scientific credentials who is also convinced that Bigfoot or Sasquatch is a real thing that's here.
Do you remember his name?
I can't remember off the top of my head. I can't remember. I've read. It's a good book. I read all 3 chapters in like 1 or 2 sittings. I'm enjoying it. I have to look that up. Maybe I'll let the show know next week what it's called. But I'm gonna go DAP too. More of a hopeful DAP, like I hope it's real. If I had to guess, I would say that it is more likely than not. But I really don't know. It's just a guess. Number 7, Cap or DAP. It's a good thing that we do not talk about baseball on this show.
No, I'm going to say that's Cap because I don't keep up with baseball too much, but it's one of the sports that I can enjoy watching the most.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I wouldn't know anything to talk about it, but I would at least enjoy listening about it.
So here's my thing. Ever since I was a little kid, probably 7 years old, my dad took me to Atlanta Braves games. We would drive from Alabama to Atlanta. We would park. We would go eat dinner. We'd go to the game. It was a whole thing. Really enjoyed it. Great memories. But the Atlanta Braves have broken my heart one too many times. They trade away every player that's good. They just do things. They come so close to winning games or to making it to the World Series. They always find a new and creative way to blow it. So I finally got to a point where after last year where we were up 3-1 about to make the World Series and then we blew it and lost, I just can't do it anymore. I just can't do it anymore. I'm saying DAP. Baseball is a great sport, lots of history and tradition. I do enjoy it, but I can't talk about it, and it's because of the Braves. It's their fault. So I'm saying DAP. Number 8. India is the greatest nation on earth? Cap or dap?
Ooh. Okay, well, I'm going to say cap, and let me explain why.
You got some people upset with you right now. We have
Well,
a big presence in India. I'm just saying.
I am very aware. So I am currently taking a social and political philosophy class, but importantly, it is a philosophy class. And the one thing that we have to learn in there is how to think about things in like on a multi-sided way. That's not the best way to word it, but not how to not think about things one-sided. You can't do that.
Right.
And the reason that I'm bringing that up is because how do you define what is the greatest country? Because everybody may have a different perception of what makes a country the greatest country.
Please tell me you're not going with North Korea. Is all I'm saying.
I'm not going with North Korea. I don't think there's any type of way to rank it where North Korea would not be dead last unless you were in North Korea.
Yeah.
Because they think it's the greatest country in the world, but
they don't know about other countries, though.
I really can't give an answer about that. I can say that I do not think that it would be America.
Yeah.
Which we're not going to get into because that gets way too political and way too touchy.
Well, look, you can love your nation and want good things for your nation, but also recognize that we've fallen behind in a lot of key areas. There's nothing.
There's a thing called tough love, and I do love my country, but there's a lot of things that I don't love about it.
Absolutely. There's nothing wrong. If you love something, you want the best for it. So wanting America to succeed and excel in areas that we've fallen behind, there's nothing unpatriotic about that. That's one of those talking points that, whether you're too far left or too far right, people like to kind of to bring it back to that. But if you're truly patriotic, you actually want your country to succeed. So, I don't find any fault in that.
You mentioned too far left or too far right. I'm just sick of the left and right thing. At the end of the day,
Absolutely.
We're Americans, and I think we lost sight of that. If
Yeah.
I'm being honest.
Yeah, I say all the time on this show, and it's corny, I don't care, but I say we need the left wing and the right wing for this bird to soar. We need everybody. We're on the same team. I don't do the whole team thing. It's not red versus blue, right versus left, liberal versus conservative. We're all Americans. So I try to keep a good head about me. Sometimes I'm too conservative for my liberal friends. Sometimes I'm too liberal for my conservative friends. But I just want justice, and I want our country to succeed. I want people to experience freedom. I want us to live up to all the ideals that we claim. So that's where I stand. I think when it comes to India, I have to say DAP, because that is our second largest audience behind the U.S. is India. We are booming. India makes up 24% of our listening audience now, which is crazy. I say all the time on this show that my goal is not to get sponsors from the United States. I want to be on a billboard in India. Put my face on a billboard in India. That's what I want. I know they struggle with poverty over there. They have their own issues. But it's a place I've always wanted to visit. I love the culture over there. Hope I get
And they are definitely moving forward. There's a lot of big companies forming over there. I'm sure you've heard, if you know anything about India and big companies in India, I'm sure you've heard of T-Series.
Yes.
So, India is definitely progressing. It is very impressive when you look at what's going on. It is very impressive.
They're on the way up, and I'm going with them. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, yeah. Some of the nicest people I've ever met were from India. I've met some people from India here that study in Birmingham. Some of the nicest, kindest people I've met.
Absolutely. Very cool music, very good food, very interesting culture. India, we love you. Ramesh, get at me. I got a guy, he's a friend of mine through this show. His name is Ramesh. He's in India. He listens. He got his brother-in-law and his cousins listening. Haven't heard from him in a few months. He used to email the show pretty regularly. So, Ramesh, if you hear this, get at us. Let us know how you're doing. We would love to hear from you. Question number 9, Cap or Dap. Donda, which is Kanye West's new album, is better than Certified Lover Boy, which is Drake's new album. Have you heard either album?
I have intentionally not listened to either album.
You're steering clear.
I am steering clear because of everything around it. One, I'm not a big fan of either of them, so it was never really something that I wanted to listen to. Like, I thought about it because of all the controversy around it.
Yeah.
But I don't personally listen to either of them. There's nothing wrong with them. I'm not like saying anything bad, but it's just not my kind of thing. It's not my kind of music. So I have not actually listened to either.
Well, I will say there is one correct answer, and it's Kanye's album is far better than Drake's album. Drake's album sounds like everything else on the radio. He's got some songs that there's a certain formula, right? That if you put out songs in a certain way with a certain sound, they're going to get played on the radio all the time. And that's what he went for, and he accomplished it. Congratulations, stack your money, Drake. But Kanye's album is actually different, and it's actually creative. And he's got some things on there that you won't hear on any other album. And I actually enjoyed it. I think the second and third time I listened all the way through was when I started thinking, actually, this is really good music. Like, this is really, really done well and done differently. I think Kanye gets a bad rap. People like to hate on him because of his association with the Kardashians, because of the whole MAGA thing, and his support for Donald Trump.
Which is stupid that people hate him for that. He can't make his own choices, apparently.
Right. And because, you know, a lot of what he does is self-seeking, and is he puts himself in the spotlight, and people don't like that. I think people are too harsh on Kanye. I think at his core, he's a guy that just wants to do well for himself and for other people. I don't have anything against the guy. He's done some silly things. He said some silly things, but man, if I had paparazzi following me around all the time, oh boy, oh boy. So I don't hold that against him. But his album was definitely better than Drake's, no question. And last one, Cap or Dap, have you ever been on a ghost hunt?
Technically not an official one, but me and some of my friends, if you remember the haunted hospital in Defuniak Springs, we would go over there with apps that could supposedly contact ghosts.
Did you ever have any cool experiences with that?
Yes. I think if you remember correctly, me and one of my other friends came and talked to you because we were so scared about what had happened.
Oh, I do remember that. Yeah, that's been a minute.
I think we were scared that you were going to get mad at us. I think we did lie and say that there were some other kids doing it. No, it was us doing it.
Yeah.
And it scared the crap out of us.
Yeah, you were young. You were a youngin' back then.
I was like 15.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. Yeah. I have been on a couple of ghost hunts, and I don't really... So Sasquatch, aliens, yes. Don't really believe in ghosts. And this is a subtle distinction. I know that a lot of people will kind of roll their eyes, but I do believe in spirits, but I don't believe in ghosts, if that makes sense. Like, I do think I think that there are spirits. I don't think that when you die that you can hang around and haunt a certain area. Like, I don't buy into all that. I've been on a couple ghost hunts, didn't have any interesting experiences to speak of. Just sort of walked around dark places with some equipment, and it was kind of creepy, and that was it. That was all.
And that's the thing with me is I can't explain what happened that one night, and I've had a couple other experiences like that, and I can't explain them. But do I immediately think that means it's a ghost? No, I don't think that ghosts are real. I can't buy into it. There's a ghost that's going to haunt a certain area. I can't buy into that.
Isn't that interesting, though, that both of us would say that Sasquatch is a likely thing, and that we're pretty certain that there's intelligent life outside of Earth, but then when it comes to ghosts, we're both like, nope.
Yeah,
That's pretty funny. Well, that has been Cap or Dap. Thank you for playing. That's something we always like to do with our guests to kind of break the ice and get to know them a little bit. Enough of that. Let's switch to the world of politics, and let's hit the headlines. You ready to hit the headlines?
We're ready to hit the headlines.
Let's go. Republican AGs join forces to warn Biden's AG against weaponizing FBI to target parents, writes the Daily Caller. Senator Ted Cruz and Republican colleagues decry Biden border crisis, according to the Epoch Times. From NPR, California sheriff defends his past membership in the extremist Oath Keepers militia. Biden says Republicans are playing Russian roulette with U.S. economy over debt ceiling, says The Guardian. And finally, independent sleuths claim that they've cracked the Zodiac killer case, and that is according to the Daily Beast.
Well, everybody knows that the Zodiac Killer is Ted Cruz. So,
I thought it was Ted Cruz's father.
is that what we're on now? I thought it was Ted Cruz.
Ted Cruz, I will never get over the fact that when he was running for president, his wife told a story that was supposed to be endearing about him and make him seem human. And the story consisted of, before they were married, or either that or right after they got married, they went grocery shopping together, and he bought like 35 cans of soup. And it was like, yo, I could never vote for this man. I like soup too, but that is not normal behavior. If that is not a sociopath, I don't know what is.
But, to me, stuff like that, those little quirky things, like, that would make me like a politician more because it would make them seem more human.
Bro,
I don't know,
that's not human. 35 cans of soup is, like, bizarre. That's bizarre.
You don't know what maybe he was donating them. I remember buying, like, 30 cans of green beans to donate so we could win a prize at youth group. So,
yeah.
You don't know what he did with those 35 cans of soup, although I will say that seems a bit excessive.
It does.
Prepping for the end of the world.
Maybe he just really likes soup. I don't know. Maybe he's we're all creatures of habit. Maybe his habit was every evening that's what he ate for dinner. I don't know. He was not married, and when I was not married, I lived on a kind of third world diet also. So I can't really judge too harshly. Hey, while we're talking about this, before we get into our first story in the world of politics, I got a story to share with you tonight.
Let's hear it.
This is a story I haven't shared with anyone. Nobody knows this, in fact, other than my wife. And when I was kind of making the roster for this episode and picking the news stories and putting things together, I actually scrapped one story just because I was like, nah, I'm going to share this story. I want Joshua to hear this and react to it live on air. I think it would be kind of fun. I actually, believe it or not, for a little while, and I do mean a little while, I was a right-wing social media influencer.
All right.
So I've made no bones about it on this show. I think that anyone who is elected president does some things that are good and does some things that are bad. I am an independent. I did not vote for Joe Biden. I did not vote for Donald Trump. I'm not necessarily a supporter of either. But I started getting towards the end of Donald Trump's first term, his only term so far, when he was starting to run against Joe Biden and things were heating up. I just started to notice some chatter online, mostly on Twitter, that was kind of interesting and kind of bizarre. Some of this QAnon type stuff and things that was just way farther right than I've ever been in my life. And I just got curious. So I made a profile on Twitter, and I won't name it because if I name it, I guarantee there will be some people that recognize it, but it does not exist any longer. I made a fake profile on Twitter, and I started posting things on there that were nothing obscene or nothing that could get me in trouble or fired from my job or in trouble with family, but just stuff like conspiracy theories and a lot of stuff about the Second Amendment and about patriotism and quotes from the Founding Fathers. I started just posting stuff like this for a good 2 or 3 months, right? And my account went from 0 followers to about 5,000 in the span of 2.5 months. So I'm not going to pretend like I had 25,000 people following me or something crazy, but I had about 5,000. And these were people that would interact with me on a daily basis. They would send private messages with intel and information about what was happening behind the scenes in Washington. This is really funny. Sometimes I would actually break news. I would just like type breaking news, and then I would drop down a few lines and make something up. And I would just put something in there that sounded plausible. And a couple times I did that, and then I saw it show up on like Breitbart or some of these right-leaning sites and thought, did I do that? It was kind of like, wait a second. Either I'm like tapped into this too hard or they're following my lead, which is bizarre. And then came January 6th. Everything that happened on January 6th. So about 2 weeks prior to January 6th, I started seeing stuff posted on in this community online, these far right people about taking over our country and taking back our country, and things started getting more specific, right? And it was kind of alarming to me, to the point that I started telling my wife, I told my father, I told a few people, hey, I think this, because at this point the election had already ended, Biden had been elected, and I was telling people, I don't think that this transfer of power is going to happen peacefully. Like, I am concerned that something is going to, like, they're saying, like, there's going to be this rally with Trump and his people, and a bunch of them don't have good attitudes, or a lot of them are planning to do other things. Like, this is kind of scary. Like, something's going to go down. Like, I was actually telling people that 2 weeks ahead of time, just because of this little community I had developed on Twitter. And obviously, I didn't want to be a part of all that. So I kind of died down, didn't post as much, kind of laid back. I came home from work for lunch on January 6th, and just like everybody else, saw everything that was happening on TV live as it was happening. Chaos, craziness, people that went way too far, people who were misled, people who were confused, people who weren't too bright, people who had bad intentions, people who harmed other people, people who did not have a true understanding of what democracy is. And it was crazy. And so then after January 6th, I posted some tweets from that account, kind of putting all that down and decrying the actions that people took and the things that they did, and just saying that's not what true patriotism is and how wrong it was. And would you know, I went from 5,000 followers to like 350 in 2 days just for speaking out against all that stuff and saying how crazy it was and how wrong it was. And then, you know, the experiment, the social experiment by that point was over. I kind of ended it. I deleted that account. It doesn't exist anymore. But it was a wild experience. It was crazy that I could gain that much of a following that fast, and that I could have an idea that something was going down 2 weeks ahead of time. It was crazy.
Yeah, you know, that could be an entire topic for an entire podcast.
It really could.
Just kind of what that shows, because that, you know, it wasn't scientific by any means, but I think it can show just how. So I've got like this, the thing that I kind of think about stuff like that, and this is the problem with social media, in my opinion. It's an established, like, tested and proven fact that social media can be and is very addictive.
Absolutely.
And I think when people put out, like, you know, this is no judgments towards you, but if you were making up things about breaking news, that was fake news. And people see that, and they see all the likes and all the comments that are with it, and that reinforces to them that, hey, everybody else is thinking this way, so this has got to be right. And that's a prime example of how fake news is spread so easily through our country. So yeah. I think that's a really fascinating thing that you did.
And that's all it was for me on my end was, and honestly, it started with this whole QAnon thing, because I didn't know about QAnon. I had no idea what it was. And a lady that I knew from way back in the day who I really respect, she's a wonderful person. She's intelligent. She's college educated. She started posting about QAnon like every day. And I was like, what is this? What even is this about? So I watched like the videos that she posted, and I was like, oh my gosh. Like, this woman is a part of a cult, or she's joined this crazy conspiracy. And I started kind of looking, and I started noticing online, you know, people would use this hashtag, where we go one, we go all. And they abbreviated it, but that was the hashtag. And I started seeing it, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is the same as this lady. This is the QAnon people. And so I really just kind of was doing a social experiment. And I will say, you know, that rush of dopamine that you get when you post something and it gets 85 retweets or 150 likes or a couple hundred comments, like, it's there no matter what. Even if you know it's not real, even if you're not serious, you still get those dopamine hits. Social media does have an effect on your brain chemistry. But yeah, it was a social experiment. It ran its course, but I just think it's crazy because since January 6th, I've heard people say, you know, how did the FBI not know what was happening? How did the Capitol Police, how did government, how did the CIA, how did no one know what was going to happen? They weren't ahead of this stuff. They didn't have any inkling that things were going to progress past just a rally and get to a point of violence. And I'm like, hey, I could have helped you. I'm just a guy on Twitter. I had 5,000. It wasn't a huge crowd. It was 5,000 people. Some people that I'm friends with have way more followers than that on social media. But I knew. Even I knew that something was up and that something wasn't right and that there was a good chance that something would spin out of control. So yeah, it was crazy. That's a story. I have never shared that publicly. Haven't talked to anybody about it other than my wife and now you and our 60 or so listeners. So hopefully I don't get raked over the coals for my social experiment.
Hopefully you don't get canceled, but if you get canceled, I'll get canceled with you.
We'll go down together, and we will relocate to India. Ramesh will put us up.
You know, I am just fine with that.
You ready to jump into some political news for the day?
Let's go.
All right, our first story in the world of politics, Biden declassifies secret FBI report detailing Saudi nationals' connection to 9/11. The Biden administration has declassified a 16-page FBI report tying 9/11 hijackers to Saudi nationals living in the United States. The document, written in 2016, summarized an FBI investigation into those ties called Operation Encore. The partially redacted report shows a closer relationship than had been previously known between two Saudis in particular, including one with diplomatic status, and some of the hijackers. Families of the 9/11 victims have long sought after the report, which painted a starkly different portrait than the one described by the 9/11 Commission report in 2004. While the Commission was largely unable to tie the Saudi men to the hijackers, the FBI document describes multiple connections and phone calls. Years ago, the Commission wrote that when it came to the Saudi diplomat Fahad al-Thumari, we've not found any evidence that Thumari provided assistance to the two hijackers. A decade later, however, it appears FBI agents came to a different conclusion. The report says that Thumari tasked an associate to help the hijackers when they arrived in Los Angeles and told the associate the hijackers were two very significant people more than a year before the attacks. The report also casts new light on the meeting of a Saudi government employee with the hijackers in a restaurant. What was once portrayed as a chance meeting is now painted as a pre-planned, well-orchestrated event. The 2004 9/11 Commission had described the Saudi employee, Omar al-Buyami, as gregarious. Investigators wrote that they found him to be an unlikely candidate for clandestine involvement with Islamic extremists. The Encore report, however, says a witness to the meeting saw Buyami waiting by the window for the hijackers to arrive, rather than running into them by chance, and engaged in a lengthy conversation with them. The report says a woman told investigators Buyami was often saying that the Islamic community needs to take action and that the community was at jihad. In an interview, victims' families said they found other items in the report revealing. For example, Thumari and Buyami were each just a degree or two of separation away from others on a phone tree known to include international terrorists. Buyami was almost in daily contact with a man with ties to the mastermind of the 1993 World Trade Center attack and spent the night in a hotel with another man connected to one of Osama bin Laden's senior lieutenants. Thumari's phone, meanwhile, was linked to people associated with the Millennium Plot bomber, who was convicted in a plot to bomb Los Angeles International Airport on New Year's Eve 1999. Buyami and Thumari told 9/11 investigators they had nothing to do with the attacks. While the report does not draw any direct links between hijackers and the Saudi Arabian government as a whole, Jim Crindler, who represents many of the families suing Saudi Arabia, said the report validates the arguments that they have made in the case. This document, together with the public evidence gathered to date, provides a blueprint for how al-Qaeda operated inside the U.S., he said, with the active, knowing support of the Saudi government. The Saudi government has long maintained that any connections between Saudi nationals and the hijackers were coincidental and have pointed to years of fighting al-Qaeda in partnership with the United States. No evidence has ever emerged to indicate that the Saudi government or its officials had previous knowledge of the terrorist attacks or in any way involved in its planning or execution, officials said in a statement released by the Saudi embassy. Any allegation that Saudi Arabia is complicit in the September 11th attacks is categorically false. Family members of those who have died said regardless, they have waited years for information to be released. The Encore document is the first of many documents that Biden administration has promised to release in coming months. So hearing that, Joshua, what thoughts do you have about that situation and the release of those documents?
Ultimately, I think we're never going to really know what happened.
Right.
I think the only way that we will ever know what truly happened, at least what the government knows happened, will be if the country is to fall and the documents are released, kind of like what happened when the USSR fell, and then all the failures that happened in its existence
became known.
Were released.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
There's always going to be new leads. There's always, you can find leads to anything. Do I think that the Saudi Arabian government knew of the attacks? I really can't say. It's not, I don't have the documents associated with it. I don't have access to any of the investigation, any evidence that came back.
Are you familiar with the case of Jamal Khashoggi by chance?
If you can remind me what the case was about. So
Khashoggi was a Saudi national who had been living in the U.S. for years and was a journalist with a prominent U.S. newspaper. I don't recall which one. And he wrote a lot of articles that were not favorable about the Saudi government and about the crown family, the royal family of Saudi Arabia. Long story short, he got lured under false pretenses to an embassy, and folks who were actually had flown there on the royal family's jet and who were associated with the government of Saudi Arabia chopped this man up into pieces in a room, killed him, removed him, put him in baggies and removed him from the room. And it was a long time before it came out, was proven that actually, yes, they had something to do with it. It was rumored for a long time. That was the Saudi government. I mean, it was government people. It was essentially, we now know essentially it was on behalf of the royal family of Saudi Arabia. I think this is a complicated issue because they are quote unquote allies. When it comes to the Middle East, they're one of the allies that we have. When it comes to oil, they play a very prominent and important role.
Which is why we are allies with them.
Well, yes, it is. And geographically, it's an important location to have a friend. This is one of those things, I've knocked Biden and his administration. I get emails, by the way, every week saying that I'm a Trump supporter and saying that I'm a Biden supporter. It's almost funny. Like, people want to complain. They think that I'm for this person or that. I try to just cover the news and say what happened. This is one thing I have to give the Biden administration props for. These documents should have been declassified a long time ago. And I know there's a lot of redactions. There's a lot of stuff that still you can't quite see and make sense of. But the families of the victims of 9/11 have been asking for this for 20 years. And now, granted, you talked about tough love earlier. They gave out some tough love because they told President Biden that he was not welcome to come to the 20-year anniversary of 9/11 unless he agreed to release these documents. It got the job done. And I do have to give some props to Biden and his administration for being the ones to actually do this. And there's more documents that are going to come out. And it honestly puts us in a tough spot because these are our allies. And I think the reason why these documents haven't been released yet is because they put Saudi Arabia in a pretty bad light. And they showed that maybe not the government as a whole, and maybe it wasn't government sanctioned, but certainly some people who are higher ups within the government had some type of role or connection or knowledge to what was going on. And, we didn't invade Saudi Arabia. We didn't bomb Saudi Arabia. That was Iraq and Afghanistan. So anyway, it's just kind of an interesting thing that these documents, after all these years, would finally be released. And I don't think most people were surprised to see the connections. I think by this point we kind of knew, even though we didn't have the proof, we kind of knew that there was connections to the Saudis, whether we had seen these documents or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's one of those. Yeah, I can agree with what you said about, not government sanctioned, but higher ups in the government could have played a role. Absolutely.
Yeah.
the royal. I guess you consider them. You would call them the royal family over there.
Yep.
It's basically it's not like a total dictatorship, but they're the ones that call the shots.
Absolutely.
They get done whatever. Like they do whatever they want to do.
Yeah, I mean, Jamal Khashoggi got killed just for writing articles speaking out against them. That doesn't happen in countries where freedom of press exists. That's not happening. At least it shouldn't be happening in America and Europe and some of these other, but it happened there. So I think that tells us all we need to know ultimately. All right, let's go to our next story in the world of politics. Andrew Cuomo left his dog Captain at the governor's mansion after he moved out and reportedly asked if anyone could keep him. Oh, my Lanta. Outgoing Governor Andrew Cuomo of New York has been without his dog Captain ever since moving out of the governor's mansion, Albany Times-Union reported. Monday, and obviously this was a while back, but Monday was Cuomo's last day in office, August 10th. He announced his resignation with 2 weeks' notice amid the fallout from accusations of harassment from 11 women whose accounts were corroborated in a 165-page report from New York Attorney General Letitia James. Man, if there's ever a 165-page report about me, I hope that it's about something else. I mean, that's terrible. 165 pages outlining all the ways that you have harassed women. That's terrible.
100 plus pages outlining how your political career is over.
Yeah, no joke. Cuomo has been staying with one of his sisters, oh boy, ever since leaving the mansion in Albany, but staff at the residence were asked if anyone would like to keep his dog, the Times-Union reported. And white people everywhere are gasping right now.
So I've actually looked into that story.
Please tell me this is true. Is this not true?
What? Yes and no. So he was going on vacation. He was already planning on going on vacation. And according to him, which he's a politician, how much can you trust him?
Also, there's a 165-page report that says that he's a slime ball, but continue.
Right. So supposedly he was planning on going on vacation and he was trying to find somebody to watch his dog.
Mm.
Now, we don't know the details about whether or not he found somebody or if it was a situation of just leave him here and we'll find someone.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't like he just left the dog at the mansion while moving out. Like, yes, he moved out, but he was also going on vacation and he needed somebody to watch the dog while he went on vacation.
You don't think this man has enough money to board his dog?
I mean, do you really want to board your dog if you have to?
Bro, I board my dog every time I leave town. She loves it. My dog, my dog is a sweet dog, but her nickname is Big Dummy because as smart as she is, she does the dumbest things. And one of those things is every time we ever go to the vet or she gets boarded, she acts as though she's just won some imaginary dog lottery. Like she thinks she's in heaven. Like she thinks every person there is her best friend and she's so excited to see them. She loves it. She loves when I drop her off at that place. It almost makes me feel like, do you not like your home? Like, what's going on here? I don't know. He's got a brother on CNN. He could have let his brother keep the dog, I would think.
Who knows? My thing about this is people are really investing time and resources into something about a dog,
Are you white or not?
Say that one more time?
Are you white or not?
Well, I am white.
White people, look, white people, you can do all kinds of things in this country and get away with it and not affect you at all. But if you mistreat a dog, white America will hang you from your shoelaces. I mean, you can get away with a lot. You can harm people. You can be a bigot. You can do all kinds of things. But if you lay a finger on a dog, you're going to be canceled so fast.
Yeah. I've heard the joke about I can watch a movie where the main characters get tortured and killed in the most tragic way possible. It's nothing. But a dog dies in a movie? That's it.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, you watch like all 45 of the Saw movies, and it's not.
And I still cry at the end of Marley and Me.
Absolutely. I mean, you're like, why does he have to die? You know, you watch Old Yeller, and I defy you to not be in tears. It's just sad. I come out here to record this podcast, and my 5-year-old was inside the house watching a movie with her mom before bed. Do you know a movie she was watching?
What?
Fox and the Hound.
See, I've actually never seen it. I just know it's. I know it's very sad.
You gotta watch that. First of all, one of my favorite Disney movies of all time. But yes, talking about dog movies and tears, it begins with Fox and the Hound. Yes, go. That is your homework assignment after you finish all these tests. Is go watch Fox. You know, if there's a girl that you are friends with, watch the Fox and the Hound together. And let her see that emotional side and that tender-heartedness, and you'll get a second date is all I'm saying. But the article goes on to say Captain, which is the dog's name, has nipped a few people at the mansion since being adopted in 2018. Maybe he's related to Joe Biden's dog. 2 state police sources who spoke with the Times Union, they got 2 state police sources to talk to the Times Union about a dog. A mansion staffer recently took the dog home for a few days but decided he was too much. Cuomo's spokesperson Rich Azzopardi, who recently described his boss as being railroaded in the harassment scandal, told the News that arrangement was only temporary until Cuomo returned from a vacation. That's what you were talking about. Yeah, a vacation he plans to take upon leaving office. The 2 state police sources talked to the paper on Saturday and said the Siberian Shepherd Malamute mix. Malamute? I never heard of that kind of
very expensive white person dog breed.
Okay, that makes sense then. Has continued roaming around the mansion. It sounds like he's just by himself. That's so sad. I feel sorry for Captain. In his last tweet from his official gubernatorial account on Monday, Cuomo also poured cold water on the story and said Captain is still a part of the family. Yeah. So apparently, Andrew Cuomo may not care about his dog all that much. And if there weren't enough reasons in that 165-page report to despise the man, I don't think this is going to help his case. It sounds like you have his back on this one, though. Are you with Cuomo here?
Yeah, I don't want to, I do not ever want to say, knowing what we know now, that I'm with Cuomo.
You can't be with Cuomo. You can't.
But man, when you put yourself in the political scene, everything you do is going to be criticized, judged,
right?
Misconveyed. I feel like this is such a stupid thing that people are making such a big deal out of this.
Like maybe focus on the fact that he has this scandal and
right, that he has the assault scandal and
assault.
There's so many. This just kind of shows the state of politics and the state of news, and I'm doing air quotes. You can't see it, but I'm doing air quotes.
You can't see it, but he's doing air quotes. You just can't see it.
That reminds me of in 2016 when CNN, and you know how CNN felt about Trump in 2016.
Oh, yes.
And not support the man, but oh my God, CNN just lost their minds over it.
And you do realize since he's left office, their numbers have plummeted. Mm-hmm. Plummeted.
They ran a story that they believed that he was taking a hair supplement.
Oh, boy.
And do you remember in the debates with Clinton when he was sniffling a lot, like after every word he was...
Yes, I do.
Well, they said that was a symptom of the medicine. And they went and consulted medical experts, and
That's
they ran
hilarious.
like a minute, 45-second story on it.
That's hilarious.
And it's just like, oh my gosh, at that time, or still is, there was, all this trouble in the Middle East, this trouble with Russia, but no, we're going to focus on the Republican nominees' hair.
That's like earlier this year we did an article on this show where we talked about it was I want to say it was the New York Times, very well respected long-standing newspaper, and their article, believe it or not, was about how Joe Biden, since he has entered the White House, if he has a meeting coming up, he does not eat salad because the leafy greens will get stuck in his teeth. That was the article. And they were serious.
That would make perfect sense in all honesty. I would not think about something like that. But again, it's like, why are we reporting on this?
Dentures. The man got to have dentures. He's 145 years old.
I feel like with the amount of money and access to the best medical care in the world, that they could very easily have done something like
veneers.
Implants.
Yep, it's veneers. You're right. Can't be dentures. He's too rich. Veneers. Only poor people have dentures. Is that what we're saying?
Well, I don't want to call anybody poor.
Yeah, we've gone way off topic, which is great. This is why it's fun to have a guest. I don't know. I think that exactly what you're talking about is why when I put it out on Twitter, 71% of people said that I am in fact a journalist. When all I do is have a news podcast, talk about politics, sports, and paranormal news. I don't make the news. I don't break the news. I just cover it. But 71%, and here's the funny part, because I told my wife this because I was driving her crazy. I was like, hey, I'm a journalist. And she was like, what? And I was like, 71% of people say I'm a journalist. And finally she got around to it and was like, well, how many people voted in the poll? 7.
I think I was one of them.
Did you vote yes?
I think so.
You voted no, didn't you? You were no.
I can't really remember to listen these last couple of weeks.
Be honest. You were a no vote. Be honest.
I cannot say yes or no.
With my personal Twitter account, I actually voted no. But I guess what is 71% out of 7 votes? 5, maybe 5 out of 7 or something. So it was a very low voter turnout. But I still thought that was funny. But the reason why that anyone would say yes to that is because of the breakdown in what it actually means to be a journalist. Journalists are supposed to be the watchdog of the politicians and of the executive branch. And it's kind of turned into something different in this day and age. But I think podcasts are important. I think especially long-form podcasts, whether it's a news show like ours or an interview show, I think that's how people kind of hear things that they wouldn't hear otherwise. Things get covered differently than they do in those little 8-minute segments on the news. So I wouldn't say that I'm a journalist, even though my people think that I am. Thank you very much. But I would say that podcasts are important, and I think that this breakdown in journalism when we cover a politician's hair or their dog incessantly is pretty silly. All right, you ready for our next story?
Let's go.
Our last story in the world of politics. 2 men arrested for alleged illegal smuggling of Kentucky Fried Chicken. This is a real story that I'm about to read to you. 2 men arrested for alleged illegal smuggling of Kentucky Fried Chicken. A trunk full of contraband KFC landed a pair of New Zealand men in hot water thanks to COVID-19 lockdown rules that would make Colonel Sanders cringe. The 2 men, that's really good writing. I really enjoy that.
Yeah, that is great journalism.
This is better than the dog story, I think. The 2 men were arrested after allegedly trying to enter the city of Auckland, where restaurants are closed, with Kentucky Fried Chicken. Upon seeing the police car, the vehicle did a U-turn and sped off, trying to evade police, local authorities said. The vehicle was searched, and police located cash alongside empty ounce bags and a large amount of takeaways. New Zealand...
I'm sorry. I now have this image in my head of your stereotypical drug dealer, like some skinny white dude with a beanie, big jacket. Which
did you just describe?
The sad thing is, it kind of describes me in a little.
I was about to say, did you just describe yourself?
Just standing by the corner. Just hey, I can get you an ounce for 50.
Hey, you want a dime bag of mashed potatoes and gravy? I got you.
You want it grilled or you want it fried? I got that extra crispy, and nobody got that in this block.
Nashville hot for an extra $1.
It's just
man.
The ounce bag. They were treating it like it was a drug.
Yeah.
That to me, just I can imagine them selling chicken by the ounce.
That's hilarious.
Like, hey, can I get a QP, please? We put it in the freezer until next year.
It'll be good for 6 months. Hey. It continues. New Zealand has some of the most stringent COVID-19 protocols in the world, and Auckland is under a level 4 lockdown where all eateries, including takeaway services, are closed. The two men drove roughly 75 miles from Hamilton to Auckland and were arrested when police noticed their suspicious vehicle on the city's outskirts. The men allegedly had at least 3 buckets of chicken, 10 cups of coleslaw, fries, and 4 other bags of KFC items, according to local police. It remains unknown if the pair intended to sell the KFC items or were just really, really hungry. Under New Zealand's anti-COVID-19 laws, the pair's trip to KFC could cost them the equivalent of about $3,000 in fines and possibly up to 6 months in prison. Wow. 6 months in prison for smuggling some chicken into your city. What do you think about that?
You know, my first thought when I hear that is, that once they took the evidence away, air quotes again, they took the evidence away, they took it back to the station and ate it.
Oh, absolutely.
You just know that happened. The evidence locker was their stomach.
Absolutely. 100%. 100%. I would bet my house on that happening. That's exactly what happened. They took it back and ate it, for sure. And I know, like, even in America, the COVID restrictions are different in different places. They're more lax in Alabama. They're even more lax in Florida and Texas. And then, like, in other places, California, Pennsylvania, other places, they're more stringent. But, man, some of these other countries, their rules are intense. And they've been that way for, like, a year without any break, without any, loosening of the restrictions and laws. To have all restaurants closed and to have chicken going out of your town getting chicken basically be treated like a felony. Man, that seems crazy. Like, aren't there some real crimes that you could be arresting people for?
Exactly. But the world is a safer place because you took these guys' chicken.
Yeah. And we love to do this. This is our second KFC story in the last couple of episodes. I don't know if you heard on the other episode, I don't remember if it was the last one or the one before, we actually did a story about a pop-up KFC hotel. Did you hear about this?
I have heard about that, but I did not catch the episode that was in.
Y'all, I got a guest on my show that never listened to the show before until tonight. That's apparent now.
I have listened to the show. It's just in the last couple of weeks, I have been so busy with school that it is wake up, maybe go get food, come back, study,
KFC?
sleep if I can.
Wake up in KFC, is that what you're saying?
I haven't even been to a KFC in months.
Oh, man, we got to change that.
It's not my favorite place in the world.
We got to change that. I have a love in my heart for KFC, and I shared about it on the show. And the reason why is because the summer I spent in Colorado,
I know this story.
That's the only place I could find any food that tasted anything like home. Was KFC. The only type of like southern-ish food was KFC.
Only place you could get sweet tea too,
yeah,
right?
Exactly. So I would go there and I would feel like I was back in the South. And so there was this pop-up hotel, and it was like $150 something or $160 a night. You would get picked up in a Colonel Sanders mobile, which was some type of expensive car, taken to this hotel room where they had a Hot Winger video game set, which was like arcade games, and it had a personal movie theater room where you could watch chicken-related movies, which I could only think of like a couple. Chicken Run and what's the one where the sky's falling? Chicken Little. Those are the only two I could think of. But they have chicken movies, whatever that means. And they had a push here for chicken button where you could get like $100 worth of KFC chicken just by pushing the button. That sounds like a good deal to me. I would go to that hotel for sure.
I think I would too, just for the experience and just to say that I went to a KFC hotel.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's like you remember the Nickelodeon hotel that used to be a thing years ago?
Yeah.
It's kind of like the Nickelodeon hotel for Southerners and for adults.
For sure. And also my grandfather reminds me of Colonel Sanders, so there's that too. So shout out to Papa. He's from, he spent a lot of time. He's from West Virginia, but he spent a lot of time living in Kentucky. He's got the white hair, and he makes the best fried chicken in the world. Like, it's far better than KFC's. I've started learning to fried chicken. Mine doesn't even compare. My grandpa makes the best fried chicken. But okay, so that's all for the world of politics. Let's switch to the world of sports, and let's hit the headlines. Patriots trade star cornerback Stephon Gilmore to the Panthers. Urban Meyer not considering resigning as Jaguars coach. The NBA won't conduct marijuana testing on players again this season. The Nets are unsure of their plan if Kyrie Irving remains unvaccinated. Paul Gasol officially retires from the NBA. The Chicago Bears commit to Justin Fields as their starting quarterback. This year's Maui Invitational basketball tournament will be played in Las Vegas due to coronavirus restrictions in Hawaii. LSU cornerback Stingley out indefinitely after foot injury. And LSU football coach Ed Orgeron says, I'm responsible for LSU's poor performance so far this season. The Yankees lost to the Boston Red Sox 6-2 to end their season, but we don't care. We don't talk baseball on this show. Let's get to some real sports, and let's talk some NFL football. Joshua, are you a fan of NFL football?
Not in the slightest.
Great. This is going to be a fun segment then. Do you at least keep up with Alabama players who are in the NFL?
I hear from my dad anytime Tua does anything.
That's awesome. Your dad's a big Tua fan?
Oh, he is. He loves Tua.
Yeah, Tua.
More than he loves Jalen.
Look, I'm a Auburn fan through and through, but I have utmost respect for Tua Tagovailoa. Like he's a good dude. Like he's just a good dude. I hope that he does well. So the way that it works when we hit the NFL and college football, when we talk football on this show, we run through the scoreboard, catch you up on scores in case you were living under a rock this weekend. Then we hit 3 observations from last weekend's football games, and we talk about 3 games we're looking forward to this week. So here are the scores from last weekend if you didn't catch them. The Bengals beat the Jaguars 24-21. The Buffalo Bills blanked the Texans 40-0. Justin Fields and the Bears defeat the Lions 24-14. The Cowboys defeat the Panthers 36-28. The Giants and Jets both get on the board with their first win of the season, the Giants defeating the Saints 27-21, and the Jets beating the Titans 27-24, both of those games in overtime. The Chiefs beat the Eagles 42-30. The Steelers fell to the Packers 27-17. And on Monday Night Football, the Chargers doubled up the Raiders 28-14. There are your scores. Let's get to 3 observations from the weekend. The first is that the Chiefs' defense is really, really bad. The Kansas City Chiefs gave up 30 points to the Eagles in a win on Sunday. They're giving up an average of 31 points a game. They're not a defense that is without talent. They've got the Honey Badger. They've got Frank Clark. They've drafted defensive players in recent years. They have a great defensive coordinator in Steve Spagnuolo, but they're struggling. And their defense is the thing that is holding this team back without question. Patrick Mahomes and the offense can put points up on the board, can outscore almost anyone, but their defense does not look like a Super Bowl defense, maybe not even a playoff defense after 4 games, and the record stands at 2-2, which is certainly surprising and a little bit of a disappointment there for the Chiefs. If they want to have the season that they're supposed to have, they're going to have to turn things around on the defensive end. And being that you don't watch NFL football, what are your thoughts about that?
You know, my thoughts about football are the very same as Leonard Hofstadter from The Big Bang Theory when he's trying to impress Penny, and he says, "Yay, sports."
Yeah.
That is my response to that. Yay, sports, go sports.
So Chiefs defense is really, really bad. Yay, sports.
Sure. Yeah. Yay, sports.
All right. Our second observation for the weekend, the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson passed for 300 yards and a touchdown and ran for 26 yards as the Ravens defeated the previously unbeaten Denver Broncos to improve to 3-1 on the year. The Ravens were supposed to be dead in the water. They've had sustained more injuries this season early on than anybody else, but instead they look like one of the better teams in the league. The Ravens are a picture of organizational excellence. They have a winning culture, And it starts with their owner and their GM. It extends down to the coach, John Harbaugh, and even their quarterback, Lamar Jackson. Do not be surprised if the Ravens are around deep into the playoffs and make a run, maybe even going farther than they have in years past. I love what Lamar Jackson is doing this season. Even coming off of an MVP season, he looks to be improved in the passing game. He hits the deep ball, but he also is seeming to go through his reads a little bit more than in years past. I really love the Ravens. Your response, Joshua?
You know, one of my friends, his favorite team is the Ravens, so I hope that they do well.
And also Yay Sports?
And Yay Sports. Indeed.
I love it. And then the last observation for the weekend, the rivalry that we never knew we needed. Tom Brady versus his old coach, Bill Belichick. It was a ton of fun. It was a ton of fun to see Tom Brady and the Buccaneers go against Bill Belichick and the Patriots. Of course, the Patriots, who have Mac Jones, former Alabama quarterback, as their starting quarterback this year in his rookie season. Tom Brady didn't play the best game. They did win. The Buccaneers won the matchup 19-17. Tom Brady was cheered initially when he was introduced, but then booed the rest of the game. Mac Jones actually outplayed Tom Brady for most of the game, but not when it counted most. On the final drive for the Patriots, Mac Jones was unable to get his team into the end zone. They settled for a field goal instead, and you know what happened from there. If you give Tom Brady a chance, even though he's like 55 years old, he's going to find a way to win the game. He is the world's eighth wonder, and they did win the game 19-17. I don't know if you saw this, Joshua, but leading up to this game, so this was Sunday Night Football. This was like the marquee game, was Tom Brady versus his old team for the first time in his old stadium. And they put out this commercial leading up to the game, and it used Adele's song Hello, and they showed clips of like Tom Brady and then his old coach kind of looking serious off into the distance. It was pretty well done.
I don't think that I have seen that, actually, because I don't keep up with I don't keep up with any of that at all. But I definitely want to go watch that now.
You should. I think you would like it. Tom Brady is a marvel. The fact that he's like 44 years old and is an NFL quarterback and won the Super Bowl. I had this joke for a while. I think I put it on Twitter one time. Maybe I said it on the show. I don't remember. But I had played kickball with a group of teenagers and was sore for 2 days, and I'm 31. Meanwhile, Tom Brady is 44 and won the Super Bowl. And I posted it or said it on the show or whatever, and my Meemaw texted me, and she said, it sounds like it's time to get back in the gym. Ouch.
You know, if that's what she says, that's what you got to do. You can't disrespect her.
No, what Meemaw says is go. What she says goes. She's the only person that I know for sure listens to every single episode that we ever put out. She's our number one fan. That's why every show I sign off by saying, Meemaw, we made it. Yeah, so shout out to Meemaw. She'll text me and say, I heard the shout out. I appreciate that. And then 3 games. Those are our observations from last weekend. 3 games I'm looking forward to watching this weekend. The first is the Titans at the Jaguars. And you might be thinking, why in the world do I want to watch 2 bad teams play football? And the reason why is because of Urban Meyer. Josh, did you see what the Jacksonville Jaguars coach Urban Meyer did this week?
What do you think my answer is going to be?
Yay Sports?
Yay Sports.
Well, listen, this man has created controversy because, Urban Meyer, he used to coach Florida, Ohio State in college football. He was one of the best college football coaches. He was right under Nick Saban, second in the game to him at the time. Now he's with the Jacksonville Jaguars in the NFL. It's his first season. They are not expected to be a good team, and they've lost all 4 of their games. They almost won their last game, which happened to be in Cincinnati. His last job was at Ohio State in Ohio, so he has family there. He has a restaurant there. So they lost the game. It was close. They almost won, but they lost. And the team gets on the plane to fly back home to Jacksonville. And Urban Meyer does not get on the plane. He says he's got to go visit his grandkids while he's in town because he's a grandpa. And then there was footage that came out on social media of him in his restaurant and some young lady that was not his wife dancing up in his lap.
I have actually heard about that.
Yes. Even my wife knew about it, and she don't know anything about NFL football. So the reason why I'm interested in this game is because this man almost lost his job over this stunt and this bad decision and the way that he looked on that video and what he was doing. And so it would be the most, I used to live in Jacksonville for a year. I love Jacksonville. I always have a special place in my heart. But it would be the most Jacksonville thing ever for this team to be terrible and for their coach to almost get fired and then for them to come out on Sunday and win the game by 14 points. That would be the most Jacksonville thing ever. So I want to watch that game just to see how the team responds. Are they going to give up? Are they going to get blown out? Or are they going to come back and win? Reports are that the coach has already lost the locker room, that he doesn't have the respect of his players at all. And I guess we will see on Sunday. The second game I look forward to watching is the Chicago Bears at the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders lost on Monday Night Football, so it'll be interesting to see if they can rebound. They've started off the season 3-0 2 years in a row, and they have crumbled. Are they going to do it again? And then, of course, Chicago. Chicago is starting Justin Fields, his first game since being named the permanent starting quarterback. I thought he was the best quarterback coming out of college last year out of Ohio State. I look forward to seeing how he plays. I want to watch him anytime that he's on the field. I'm looking forward to Bears and Raiders. And then the last one is probably the best game of the weekend. The Buffalo Bills at the Kansas City Chiefs. We just talked about how the Chiefs' defense looks terrible, and the Buffalo Bills' offense looks absolutely explosive with Josh Allen and company. The Bills also have a good defense, but their offense has really hit its stride. They look like a top 2 or 3 team in the league, and the Chiefs, who are supposed to be a top 2 or 3 team in the league, have actually been struggling. So I want to see how things shake out there, if the Chiefs can put together some defense, or if Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen get into a shootout. Either way, it's going to be entertaining. Those are the 3 games that I'm looking forward to watching this weekend. Titans at Jaguars, Bears at Raiders, and Bills at Chiefs. And you say what, Joshua?
You know, I say yay sports. You mentioned the Bears. All I have to say about that is the Bears.
The Bears. It's got to be the Bears, right?
Gotta be.
Gotta be. So that's all for NFL football. We now move to college football. One thing that we do with college football is something that we call our In the Shed Solid 7. That's where we pick 7 games. We go against the spread each week. We don't actually bet money. We don't encourage you to bet money. You do what you need to do. But we're keeping up with our record, seeing how we do. This last weekend, we went 3-4 on the weekend, putting us at 49% correct for the season, on our quest to hit 53% overall. Arkansas, Duke, Memphis, and Texas A&M, you all let us down. While Michigan, Rice, and Michigan State, you guys came through for us. Let's hit the scoreboard. Iowa beat Maryland 51-14. BYU 34, Utah State 20. Michigan down Wisconsin 38-17. Tennessee topped Missouri 62-24. Texas won over TCU 32-27. Wake Forest defeated Louisville 37-34. USC beat Colorado 37-14. Coastal Carolina whooped Louisiana Monroe 59-6. Stanford upset Oregon 31-24 in overtime. Oklahoma topped Kansas State 37-31. Ohio State beat Rutgers 52-13. Florida State got their first win of the season, beating Syracuse by a score of 33-30. Kentucky beat Florida 20-13, their first win over Florida in many, many, many years. Oklahoma State knocked off Baylor 24-14. Liberty beat UAB. Sorry, Joshua.
Very aware. We lost our first game in our new stadium, in Protective Stadium.
36-12. 36-12.
It was very tragic.
Did you go to the game?
I had been up the night before doing schoolwork, and then I went and did gallery sitting, just going and sitting while people come in and look at art at an art studio. So by the time that I got home around 4 o'clock, I was dead. And I just went home and went to bed and watched stuff watched it on my computer.
So, yay sports?
Yeah, go Blazers.
Go Blazers. Clemson beat Boston College in a nail-biter 19-13. Those are your scores. 3 observations from the weekend. The first one, the dominance of Alabama and Georgia. Alabama and Georgia, two teams that we knew were the top two teams in the country coming into last weekend. They're ranked 1 and 2 in all of the polls, including our In the Shed Top 25 poll. But they were both supposed to at least have a challenge for the first time of the year this past weekend. Alabama playing Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin, and Georgia playing against Arkansas, who was ranked in the top 10. But as it turned out, neither team was challenged at all. Alabama beat Ole Miss 42-21, and Georgia beat Arkansas 37-0. Both teams do travel and play road games this week. Alabama at Texas A&M and Georgia at Auburn. Lord help us. But yeah, Alabama and Georgia far more dominant even than what we thought. You're a big Alabama fan. What do you think about Alabama's run so far this season?
I think it's just the beginning. I could definitely see us going to the national championship.
Yeah.
So,
do you think Georgia has a chance against Alabama were they to play each other in the SEC championship game?
I don't want to jinx anything.
Jinx it.
I think that they will definitely be a challenge.
Yeah.
It's not going to be an easy game. It's not.
No, for sure.
Not by any means. It'll be a close game. It could be a game that ends in overtime.
The thing is that Georgia has the best defense in college football this year. Their defense is unbelievable. I mean, I'm an Auburn fan. I love my team. But if Georgia gets off the bus on Saturday, we're in trouble. I'm just not sure how we're going to score points against that defense. And I think our defense is good enough to hold them, to a respectable amount of points. But, I think Auburn has a chance to get blown out by 2 or 3 scores. I just don't see how it can be close. So the dominance of Alabama and Georgia is nothing new, but it's also nothing that's going away just yet. And that's observation number 1 from the weekend. Observation number 2, Auburn 24, LSU 19. Embattled quarterback Bo Nix went 22 for 44 for 255 yards through the air and a touchdown. He also rushed for 74 yards as well. It's amazing how things can change in just 1 week. So last week we talked about how Auburn head coach Brian Harsin, who is in his first year, was under a lot of pressure after they almost lost their homecoming game to Georgia State, after he benched his quarterback, after he fired his wide receivers coach. Their recruiting class is really lacking and not doing well for next season. Things were not looking good. And then Auburn went into Death Valley, and they won a game that most people expected them to find a way to lose. Their defense looked good, but the difference in the game was the play of quarterback Bo Nix, who has had an up-and-down career in Auburn. Auburn fans were ready for a change, but it seems like Bo Nix being benched actually gave him kind of hit reset for him and challenged him to do better. He played his best game as an Auburn Tiger by far. He looked more in control. He was out of the pocket. He was running. And I think maybe the Auburn coaches have figured out that the way to use Bo Nix at quarterback is not to expect him to be a drop-back passer, but to use his athleticism to involve him in the run game, to give him run-pass options. And that's what they're going to have to do against Georgia if they want to have any success. That was the first time that Auburn had beaten LSU in their stadium in 20 years. So it was quite the impressive ordeal. We were very happy in our house. I know you're an Alabama fan. Do you have any thoughts about Auburn beating LSU?
See you at the Iron Bowl.
Ooh, maybe not. Maybe the Lord will come back by then, because I don't want any part of Alabama this year. I don't want to play that game. Crazy things happen in the Iron Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm not looking forward to it at this point. At least so far, Auburn is 4-1. They're ranked 18th in the country, but they're not ranked. They're not ranked in our In the Shed Top 25 poll. Observation number 3 from the weekend: Cincinnati defeats Notre Dame in South Bend 24-13. Cincinnati has moved up to 5th overall in the AP poll and 6th overall in the coaches poll. But in all honesty, Cincinnati should be ranked number 3. Because Alabama and Georgia are the most dominant teams in college football, no question about it. But Cincinnati is 3rd. Cincinnati went undefeated in the regular season last year. Cincinnati has a legitimate top-tier head coach in Luke Fickell. Their quarterback is elite. They went undefeated last year and then played Georgia in a bowl game and lost by a last-second field goal. Cincinnati is a real team. They play defense. They make the other team turn the ball over. I love what Cincinnati's doing. They've now beat Indiana and Notre Dame on the road. They have a couple of tough games left in conference and a conference championship game to state their case, but they should be ranked number 3rd overall. The only reason they're not ranked number 3rd in the polls is because the AP and the coaches poll are looking for an excuse to leave them out of the playoffs because they're not from the SEC, they're not from the Big Ten, they're not from any of these premier conferences. And in our poll, we have them number 3 because that's where they belong. Are you pro Cincinnati?
I am neutral.
Neutral to Cincinnati. You can't be neutral to the Bearcats. They're called the Bearcats. That is a dope name.
Again, I will say I am neutral and go sports.
Go sports. 3 games that I'm looking forward to watching this weekend. Auburn versus Georgia. Yes, even though I expect Georgia to win by multiple touchdowns, I want to see if Auburn's defense can at least slow down the Georgia offense. And I think with Georgia having a backup quarterback in that game, that we at least have a shot. There goes some sirens. Is that on my end or your end?
It's got to be on your end. A little while ago, I've had at least 3 flash flood warnings pop up on my phone since we've started. So
it would be a shame if you got washed away in the middle of this podcast.
I'm high up in the building. I should be okay.
Okay, well,
but I got some friends in the lowest level, so
you just let me know. I'll send a copter if I need to.
All right.
So I want to see if Auburn's defense can slow down the Georgia offense. I want to see if Auburn can put up any points. It's a rivalry game. I expect Georgia to win fully, but I'm looking forward to watching that one. I also want to see the Penn State and Iowa game. Penn State goes on the road to Iowa. These are 2 teams that are ranked in the top 10, top 5 in some polls. And they're probably the 2 best teams in the Big Ten. Iowa plays really good on defense. They actually look a lot better on offense this season, a lot more explosive than expected. Penn State has a real quarterback, and I think they're 2-point favorites in the game, so we're going to see who comes out on top there. And then the last game I'm looking forward to is Kentucky versus LSU. Kentucky coming off a huge win against Florida for their program, their chances in the SEC East. LSU having a disappointing season, but this is going to be a tough game for Kentucky. Even though they're at home, even though they beat Florida last week, even though they're undefeated, it's going to be hard for them to kind of get up and get excited about another big game 2 weeks in a row. So I want to see if Kentucky can continue their momentum and their climb in the SEC East, and if LSU can rebound. Any thoughts about those games, Josh? Auburn, Georgia, Penn State, Iowa, and Kentucky LSU?
Yeah, it will be interesting to see how Auburn stands up and the defense stands up to Georgia.
Yeah, they might get bullied and get pushed around.
Yeah, it's like you said, they're gonna lose.
Yeah.
But they're not gonna go down without a fight. I can say that. And, if that's coming from an Alabama fan.
Yeah, and it is a home game for Auburn, and they do play better at home. So if nothing else, they have that.
It'll definitely be a good game to watch.
So finishing up college football before we get to the paranormal news, and we'll post this on Twitter too, but our In the Shed Solid 7 for this week. These are our 7 picks against the spread, who we like this week. We like Coastal Carolina and the undefeated Chanticleers, who are 20-point favorites. We like them to cover the spread at Arkansas State. That game happens on Thursday night. We like Stanford plus 13 at Arizona State. Stanford has been playing really tough. Arizona State has a lot of close games. We like BYU minus 5.5 against Boise State. BYU's got a bigger team, a more athletic team, and a more talented team. We like SMU to cover a 13.5-point spread at Navy. SMU is good and Navy is not. We like Oregon State minus 3.5 at Washington State. Undefeated UTSA, who is plus 3.5 at Western Kentucky. Notre Dame, who are 1-point favorites at Virginia Tech. So those are our In the Shed Solid 7 picks this week. Coastal Carolina minus 20, Stanford plus 13, BYU minus 5.5, SMU minus 13.5, Oregon State minus 3.5, UTSA plus 3.5, and Notre Dame minus 1. The last thing we want to cover before we move on, we want to share with you our In the Shed with Wes top 25 college football rankings. They've been updated each week. They'll be updated on Monday and posted on our Twitter. You can follow us on Twitter at InTheShed4. Those are the words In the Shed and the number 4. Let's hit our top 25 rankings. Number 25, NC State. Number 24, Fresno State. Number 23, Liberty, the team that beat the UAB Blazers last week. Number 22, Arizona State. Number 21, undefeated UTSA. And their mascot is the Roadrunners. And that might be the best mascot I've ever heard. The UTSA Roadrunners. So dope. Number 20, Ole Miss, even coming off of a loss. They're ranked 20th. Number 19, Oklahoma State. Number 18, Oregon State. 17, Florida. 16, Notre Dame. 15, Oregon. Number 14, Arkansas. Number 13, Michigan State. Number 12, Michigan. And number 11, Wake Forest. And now for our top 10. At 10, BYU. They are undefeated. They're athletic. They're playing very well. Their quarterback has played well as well. I said that twice. Number 9, the Kentucky Wildcats, undefeated, coming off of a win against Florida. Number 8, Ohio State. Number 7, Iowa. Number 6, Penn State. Number 5, Coastal Carolina. Number 4, Oklahoma. Number 3, Cincinnati. Number 2, Georgia. And number 1 overall, the Alabama Crimson Tide. Any comments about those rankings?
You know, it pains me just to hear Liberty right now. But
Go Blazers.
Go Blazers. We lost our first game. Not our first game, but our first game in our new stadium.
Right.
That hurt a little bit. So maybe it's not the worst thing in the world that I didn't go.
True. Maybe, but maybe if you had gone, y'all would have won, though.
Sure.
Maybe you're not being there is why they lost.
Thanks.
Well, that's all for the world of sports. Let's switch to this, the world of the paranormal. I'm about to cough real quick. Should I leave that in the show when I cough?
Probably not.
A lot of times I take them out, but sometimes it's pretty. One time I sneezed super loud. I just left it in the show. I was like, that's too good. Last week, Charcy called me right in the middle of the show. She knew I was recording. She still called me to talk about car seats. So I left the phone ringing in the show. Next time I told her I'm putting her on the show.
Has she been on yet?
No, she won't do it. I'm trying to get her.
Oh, come on. You've got to do it at least once.
I know, that's what I said. For our first story in the world of the paranormal, we go to the Mojave Desert. Do you know where the Mojave Desert is, by the way?
I believe so, but can you refresh me on it?
I really don't know. I should know that. I know it's in the U.S., and it's probably in the western half of the U.S., but I'm not sure. Is that like Arizona and all that area? I don't know.
It is in California. I just looked it up.
Oh, California. Okay. So now at least we know, if you're listening to this show and you heard the Mojave Desert, California, for the record. Retired intelligence official claims to know where an alien base is hidden in the Mojave Desert. Somewhere deep in the Mojave Desert in the southwest of the United States is a hidden base inside a mountain where extraterrestrials live. This is the claim from a self-described retired defense intelligence officer who now goes by the alias Anjali? Anjali? I'm going to go with Anjali because I don't think it's Anjali. It's Anjali. How would you say that? Anjali?
I would think it's Anjali.
Anjali. Anjali. We're going to say that. Wednesday morning, the woman whose original name, I've never heard that before, whose original name is Angelina Lynn Johnston, held a news conference in front of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. That is very official. Right in front of the Lincoln Memorial. Okay. Here she announced that she'll be bringing an astronaut and scientist to the secret base to meet with the higher beings. Anjali said she met the beings on January 21st, 2018, which is very, very specific to say that she met them on January 21st, 2018. There's not a date for the event yet, but Anjali said it will happen before the end of 2021. In front of a small gathering of people, she told her story of meeting two strangers who showed her the tunnels to the base. She said it was there that she met two aliens of different races who communicated with her through her consciousness. The news conference was streamed online. So, aliens in tunnels in mountains in the Mojave Desert of California. What say you, Joshua?
You know, I if this person had credibility.
But she's a retired defense intelligence agent person.
Do we know that, or does she just say that she is?
Well, she's self-described, but I'm inclined to trust her. She seems very trustworthy to me. I don't know.
I couldn't. I just that's something that I just can't believe.
So here's the thing.
Sounds...
Here's the thing. We both say that if we had to guess, we would say yes, there is intelligent life outside of Earth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even the U.S. government has come out and said that some of these UFO sightings are actual, real physical crafts that do not match known technology of ours or of any other nation that exists in the world. So if we believe that there's intelligent life and we know that there's UFOs that we can't explain the technology, who's to say that this lady is crazy or is off her rocker? I mean, what if this is somehow? What if she's right? I mean, what would that mean for the state of our world?
It would mean a couple of things. One, it would mean the fact that there is intelligent life. There's even life outside of Earth, if we're to assume that it came here.
Right.
It would change basically everything we've ever thought we knew about life and why we're here.
It would definitely be earth-shattering news.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, the UFO sightings that we've seen. I'm sure you've seen the videos from the Navy officer and the Air Force where the craft goes into the ocean. Have you seen this? It goes into the ocean and pops back out more than once.
There have been a couple of videos like that.
Yeah, and so that has led to a lot of speculation that I've seen online lately. That maybe this whole UFO phenomenon, sorry, that's the thing we gotta do contractually. That this whole UFO phenomenon might be explained by considering the fact that whatever is manning these ships, or whatever is on these crafts actually is some type of life form that already lives here among us, whether in the ocean or whether being here but not always where we are dimensionally, that somehow these beings are actually already here with us. What is your take on that?
You know, I've heard a couple theories like that before.
Yeah.
If you're going to hide something, if you can find a way to hide it in the ocean where humans currently don't have the technology to really reach,
yeah,
that would be the place to go. You can hide right there, and you've got access to all of the world.
Yeah, I mean the ocean is incredibly unexplored. I mean there's parts of the ocean and depths of the ocean that we haven't had the ability to even really really get down there and explore and find out what even is there. So, I mean, I think if there is something that is undiscovered or hidden, that would be the place. Probably, if I had to guess, I would say that probably this lady is not really correct. That whether it's, I'm trying to be nice, whether it's publicity, whether she's got some mental health issues, whether she's just a very imaginative person, if I had to push my chips to the middle of the table, I would say no, I don't believe her story. But then I think that, that's kind of a harsh judgment if I'm someone who believes that there is intelligent life, and if the government has even said that these UFOs, these crafts that we're seeing are in fact real, and we've already seen them here. It's just kind of funny on the one hand that we can say we can accept the first two, but then when she tells her story, we're like, no. Not in the Mojave Desert, not in the mountains, not in the tunnels. You have not met them.
Right.
But yeah, I'm going to have to say probably not. Are you with me on that?
Yeah, it sounds like that may have been a drug trip or something.
Yeah, DMT. We have worked our way all the way back to DMT. Go sports. Our next story in the world of the paranormal takes us to remote parts of Poland. Vampire graves uncovered in Poland. Are you ready to hear about some vampire graves?
And I think I've heard some about this before. I think I know where this story is going. So
Awesome. Then you know more than me because I've never seen this article until this very second. Here we go. Archaeologists in Poland believe they've made a startling discovery, a group of vampire graves. The graves were discovered during the construction of a roadway near the Polish town of Gliwice. Gliwice, that's a cool name, where archaeologists are more accustomed to finding the remains of World War II soldiers, according to the Telegraph. But instead of soldiers, the graves contained skeletons whose heads had been severed and placed on their legs. This indicated to the archaeologists that the bodies had been subject to a ritualized execution designed to ensure the dead stayed dead, the Telegraph reports. By keeping the head separated from the body, according to ancient superstition, the undead wouldn't be able to rise from the grave to terrorize the living. Decapitation was one way of achieving that. Another way was hanging the person by a rope attached to the neck until over time the decaying body simply separated from the head. There were other equally bizarre ways to deal with vampire burials, according to research published by forensic anthropologist Matteo Borini. He cites the case of a woman who died during a 16th century plague in Venice, Italy. The woman was apparently buried with a brick wedged tightly in her open mouth, a popular medieval method of keeping suspected vampires from returning to feed on the blood of the living. Is this where you thought this was going?
Yep, that's exactly where I thought this was going.
So you've actually...
That's an old, call it a solution to when people think somebody's a vampire. I don't know why they thought that, but
just put a brick in the mouth. Just brick in the mouth. Possible vampire, brick in the mouth. Mother-in-law that you... No, I'm just kidding. The woman's grave might be the earliest known vampire burial ever found. Hers was a typical case of an accusation of vampirism following some calamity such as a plague or a devastating crop failure. Accusing an individual of being a vampire was not an uncommon way of finding a scapegoat for an otherwise unexplained disaster. In other cases, the body of a suspected vampire might be staked to the ground, hooked on phonics, staked to the ground, pinning the corpse into a place with a stake made of metal or wood. In 2012, archaeologists in Bulgaria found 2 skeletons with iron rods piercing their chests, indicating they may have been considered vampires. The practice of decapitating the bodies of suspected vampires before burial was common in Slavic countries during the early Christian era, when pagans believed that vampires were widespread. In fact, their belief in vampires stemmed from both superstition about death and lack of knowledge about decomposition.
That's where else I thought this was going.
Where's that? The decomposition?
Mm-hmm.
How so?
So, basically, sometimes what can happen is when a body is decaying is, I think it is either some of the stomach acid eats into the flesh, or for whatever reason the blood starts to leak from the body.
That sounds lovely.
And because because they'd be laying flat, the blood may pool in the mouth, so it looks like they're throwing up blood, and it looks like they had drank blood before they died. So that made a lot of people think after someone died, like, oh, this person was a vampire. So they would take like the measures when they buried them, and sometimes they would even to be sure, they would dig people back up, and then they would definitely see stuff in the mouth that was either blood or looked like blood, and they would think that that was a surefire sign that, oh, this person was a vampire. Wow.
All right. Well, let's see. Let's see if your prediction is correct. Let's see if that's where this goes. You might be right. I don't know. I don't know about this, but you might be right. Most vampire stories of history tend to follow a certain pattern where an individual or family dies of some unfortunate event or disease. Before science could explain such deaths, the people chose to blame them on vampires. Villagers have also mistaken ordinary decomposition processes for the supernatural. Here we go. For example, though lay people might assume that a body would decompose immediately, if the coffin is well sealed and buried in winter, putrefaction might be delayed by weeks or months. Intestinal decomposition creates bloating, which can force blood up into the mouth. Look at you, college boy, making it look like
I learned that a long time ago watching Monster Quest.
Monster Quest. Making it look like a dead body has recently sucked blood. Just what you said. These processes are well understood by modern doctors and morticians as well as Joshua Teasley, but in medieval Europe were taken as unmistakable signs that vampires were real and existed among them. There's no consensus yet on when the bodies found in Poland were buried. According to Jacek Pierzak, one of the archaeologists on the site, the skeletons were found with no jewelry, belt buckles, buttons, or any other artifacts that might assist in providing a burial date. So actually, I mean, this story checks out that a vampire graveyard was found in the sense that there's no doubt that people at least thought that these folks were vampires.
Oh yeah, that kind of thing was super common. When you don't have the understanding for something, people tried to find the best way they could to explain it, and that was the best way for them to explain it. It was part of the culture, part of the religion at the time.
It's like back in the day when if you had a migraine, they would drill a hole in your head to let the demon out. I mean, it's the same kind of
Or when they would cut you and let the bad blood bleed out.
Yes. Is there any chance at all, any chance at all in your mind that vampires actually at one point in time existed or exist today?
So there's two ways to go with this, and I don't want to just go on to some other thing. So one, there are animals that exist that survive on blood.
Right.
The easiest one is like insects,
mosquitoes,
or spiders. You also have things like vampire bats, which thrive off blood. So that is like something that's not uncommon in nature.
But what about with
human
people?
Vampires?
Yeah, I'm talking people. You don't, no possibility.
I mean, there have been people that have that have drank blood. They call themselves vampires. I want to say, I can't remember which queen it was, and I want to say it was where Bloody Mary came from. She would kill young virgin women and bathe in their blood because she thought it would give her immortality.
That's real freaky deaky type stuff right there.
Yeah. The whole idea of vampires that we have now really came from the, I forget who wrote it, but it came from the novel Dracula,
Bram Stoker,
which was actually based off of Vlad the Impaler.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Yeah, Bram Stoker wrote that, I think. Vlad the Impaler, who would put people's heads on stakes and was just very vile and violent, did all kinds of weird stuff.
Oh, it was a lot worse than that. I'm not going to go into the graphic detail, but he figured out a way to, from a certain end where the sun don't shine, he figured out a way to stick a thin enough stake all the way through a person where they would still survive for a couple of days.
Yo.
So that's how he got the name Vlad the Impaler. Who would do that to his enemies.
I guess that would make sense with a nickname like that, but that I don't think I ever learned that in school. That's kind of creepy.
History did a whole thing on that.
There are people that call themselves vampires even to this day and who regularly make a habit of drinking blood. The other thing, we did a show on vampires already. That we covered that on one show, and we read some articles that talked about a different type of vampirism. There were energy vampires. These are people that don't drink your blood, your physical blood, but who believe that they feast on your energy. That in being around you, that they can drain you of your energy, and that gives them more life and more energy and more vitality.
I have definitely dated a few women that sucked all the energy out of me. So they may be onto something.
Shout out to your exes. Any names you want? No, I'm just kidding. I mean, there's definitely people that take the energy from us and that suck the energy out of a room. But I mean, these people, it's hard to tell whether they're cosplaying, whether this is like some type of LARP that they do, or whether they're actually like serious on a almost religious cult-like level. I don't think or have any reason to believe that on a supernatural paranormal level there have ever been any type of vampires as far as people. But there certainly are people who call themselves vampires, and that in and of itself is freaky enough for me. All right, moving on. Our next story takes us to the world of film. Gay conversion camp horror movie coming from Insidious makers. Blumhouse Productions has evolved into one of the most lucrative, successful forces in the market, producing movies for exceedingly low costs against high returns. The Invisible Man made more than $143 million off of a $7 million budget, and who could forget Paranormal Activity, produced for less than $250,000 and grossing nearly $200 million worldwide. Later this year, it's got Halloween Kills and a new Paranormal Activity installment, not to mention a revival of the Exorcist franchise in 2023. As reported by Deadline, Kevin Bacon, of all people, has joined the cast of John Logan's untitled horror movie, said to be set in a gay conversion camp and also starring the politicians Theo Germain. The movie is an LGBTQIA+ empowerment tale, the outlet notes. Conversion therapy is a highly controversial, harmful practice based on using psychotherapy or any other type of treatment, such as electric shock methods, to religious teachings in a bid to alter one's gender identity or reverse a person's sexual orientation. It's been a hot topic in recent years, with the UK government set to, but also yet to outlaw it. The UK government set to, but also yet to outlaw it, I should say. Logan is a 3-time Oscar nominee, earning 2 Best Original Screenplay nominations for Gladiator and The Aviator, and 1 Best Adapted Screenplay nomination for Hugo. He also wrote Skyfall alongside Neil Purvis and Robert Wade. So a horror movie that is set at a gay conversion camp made by Blumhouse, which I'm actually a big fan of. I think that they do really cool, different, out-of-the-box type movies. Does that sound like something that is interesting to you?
It is such an interesting concept.
It really is.
I do want to watch it. I am right now on the quest to find a movie that will scare or disturb me.
Yeah.
It has not happened.
Do you like horror movies?
Oh, I love horror movies.
Me too.
I also have an ungodly amount of horror movie knowledge, but not about the horror movies you would expect.
Yeah. That's one thing I'm excited about every year for October, which also happens to be my birthday month. Holla at you, boy. But I get excited because when the month hits, I get the itch. I want to start watching horror movies, both the classics, new ones that come out. And this is a very different idea. I can certainly see while a setting like that could be scary and could definitely induce some horror, especially for someone who's dealing with those types of feelings and thoughts and identity issues and having... And I say that to mean, folks questioning your identity and calling it into question and trying to force you to do that as well. I think it's a really out-of-the-box idea, and if anybody's going to take an out-of-the-box idea and make something cool out of it, I have faith in Blumhouse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and from what you've said, it seems like, because I have not heard about it until now, it seems like it's one of those things that's also kind of there to make a statement.
Yeah. And starring Kevin Bacon.
Any kind of movies like that.
Kevin Bacon. That's so random. I love it. He's a good actor. I mean, Kevin Bacon, this is not his best movie by far, but I always remember him from Tremors. I love those movies. I'll definitely check it out. I'll definitely watch it. And right now on Amazon Prime, Blumhouse is doing I don't remember what it's called, but basically a collection of 5 movies that come out. And they all sound super dope, so I'm going to check that out too. And now... the moment that you have all been waiting for, the moment that I have been waiting for, the moment that Joshua has been waiting for, the reason that Joshua is on the show, our last story in the world of the paranormal, the Apollo moon landing was a hoax. All right, before...
Not at all. There's no chance.
In July of 1969, astronauts Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins landed on the moon... allegedly.
Let me go ahead and stop. Can I go ahead and stop you right there?
Go for it.
So they all 3 were on the Apollo 11 mission, but Michael Collins never actually touched down on the moon with Buzz and Neil. He stayed in I think it was the command module that orbited the moon. So he was nicknamed the loneliest man in existence.
First of all, that's very sad, and I feel very bad for Michael Collins. He put in all the same work and training. He got left out. But
he
also,
always said that he didn't bother him. He said because he had a job to do and he was just as an important part as they were. So he said that it never really bothered him.
Do you know why it didn't bother him?
Go ahead and say it because I know where you're going.
Because ain't none of them get out there on the moon. Ain't none of them, and he knew that, so he wasn't really bothered. It wouldn't bother you if nobody else really did either. It wouldn't bother you. But if you were the only one that didn't get to actually go on the actual, literal, real-life moon, yeah, you would be bothered. You would be bothered. So while this was literally a huge step for mankind, many people then and some today believe that the landing never happened and was instead staged. According to the Skeptics Dictionary, the theory became popular in the 70s, although I will interject and say that actually people questioned it from the moment it happened. And a couple of decades later, in 1999, 30% of Americans were skeptical of the moon landing. The number today has lowered to 6%, but the theory still remains well known throughout the internet and our society. So this is the way that I thought we would do this, Joshua, because I like to rile you up. And as long as I have known you, this is something that we have constantly gone back and forth about, the moon landing, with me taking the role of the person that doubts it and you being the one to come back and say, no, it definitively happened, and here's the reasons why. So I would like to just raise, because some people listening to this may not be aware of some of the questions or doubts or comments or concerns from people who doubt that it happened. So I would like to raise some of these issues, and if you have a response to those, great. You can kind of say, actually, I can answer that, or I can speak to that. If not, we can move on. Then you can state your case after that. Does that sound good?
Sounds good to me.
So the flag. The flag in the moon landing video is seen waving as Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin plant it on the moon. The flag also shows some rippling because of wind. The thing is, the moon does not have any atmosphere. NASA has explained the phenomenon as the effect of storing it in a tube and then unfurling it. You have any comment about the flag? There's no wind on the moon.
So that whole, the point that you're making, there's no wind on the moon, it's a vacuum. There's no atmosphere at all. That is actually part of the reason that it is able to move as much as it does. So it's a couple of things. First, the flag had a metal rod in the top so it could stay up, because the fact is it would never fly, and it would just be hanging there if they didn't put that. I think it was just like a metal wire or a metal rod. So that's how it's able to stay straight up at the 90-degree angle. You've also got to remember, I think it's the moon is 1/6, has 1/6 the gravity of Earth. I may be wrong on that. So
Sounds
everything
right to me.
it like moves a lot easier because there's not as much gravity pulling it down. It's just like when, I think it was Alan Shepard hit the golf ball on the moon and it just kept going. Also, because there is the vacuum of space, that means that there are no air molecules. So oxygen, whatever makes up the air that we breathe on Earth, oxygen, nitrogen, something else.
So you're saying that it didn't have to have any wind to move, that's a moot point.
So there was not anything in the air to slow down. There was no air resistance to slow down. So every little movement would cause the flag to move a lot. They also had to jam it into the ground. So I think they drilled a hole, and then Neil kind of had to work it down into the ground. And so when you see it moving, it was right after they did that. And if you watch, you can kind of see how it rocks as it moves.
So the flag was not moving from wind, but was moving just because the base of the flag was being pushed down into the moon and planted, essentially.
And you've also got to remember that they were in those big, bulky spacesuits. So
True.
They were having to really struggle to move around. So sure, that they slipped a couple times, so their movements weren't super precise of getting it in. So there was constant movement of getting it in, because after, you can watch how it slowly slows down. It wouldn't have done that if there was wind. It would have kept going and been a lot more sporadic and random.
Fine. I'll give you that one. Okay. All right. Objection number 2. We'll move on. I gave you that one. We're going to move on. Number 2. No impact crater. Another thing pointed out is there is no impact crater on the surface of the moon where the lunar module landed. The surface of the moon has no signs of any displacement of moon dust around the module. NASA said that the module didn't need that much of thrust while landing to create a crater, but that's obviously ridiculous. If it landed, it would have made an impact on the moon, right?
So here's an interesting fact. I'll get into a little bit thing about how the lunar lander was actually designed. With the legs of the lander, there were the 4 legs, and they had, I think it may have been on every single one, but it could have only been on one. There were these rods that would retract back up into the legs as they were pushed in by the surface of the moon.
Like Rod Stewart?
When you hear, I think it was Neil Armstrong, it was either Neil or Buzz said contact light before the famous words, the eagle has landed.
I do remember the eagle has landed part, yeah.
If you go back and listen or watch, you can hear him say contact light, and that was when they first made contact with the moon. Okay. They had no clue what the surface of the moon was going to be like. They had no idea whether they were going to sink down into it like sand or whether it was going to be rocky and hard like it ended up being. The way that they designed the legs, I'm trying to think of it. It was kind of like this.
If the surface was rocky and hard, it wouldn't necessarily create a crater when it landed, is the layman's explanation
that's not my answer yet. So you had the the little contact, like beam or whatever, bars that came down would retract up once they hit the ground. The way the legs were made, everything in the lander, for one, had to be made super light. Like, it was essentially just made out of glorified tinfoil. That's how thin it was. The legs were made because they didn't know how the surface of the moon was, what it was going to be like. They made it so that the legs would basically crumple up, kind of like a bendy straw.
Okay.
And so that way, that would absorb all the impact if they landed it a little hard. And what it was supposed to do was, like, go all the way down, because they assumed there would be a hard landing because nobody had ever even flown the lunar lander before that.
Right.
Well, it turns out that Neil Armstrong was such a good lunar lander pilot that he landed it so softly that the legs barely even retracted.
Does that not...
Okay.
When you're saying that, does that not sound a little far-fetched to you?
Well, if you watch the video, because he climbs down the ladder, he's the first one down, everybody knows that. He climbs down the ladder, and Buzz Aldrin stayed in the lander before, like, Neil got all the way down, because they weren't sure if he would be able to get back up because of how far it was. And you can watch him testing it, and he even says, like, it's a bit of a jump, but it's not too bad, something like that. Because he actually set it down so easily that that's the proof that he set it down so easy. The legs didn't collapse. They had actually a hard time getting back up on the ladder because he set it down so much more softly than anybody thought was possible.
What are the odds?
You could say that. You've also got to remember that the lunar lander, or that the moon, has much lower gravity. So it wasn't going to be as hard of an impact anyway. Even if they crashed into the moon, it wouldn't have been as hard as if they had, like, crashed into the Earth.
I guess.
And the whole thing about not needing as much thrust, because there's not as much gravity pulling you down, you don't need as much thrust to keep you, like, to slow your speed and then eventually land. Which would also explain why there was no burn on the
I feel
surface.
undecided on this one. The first one I gave to you explained that one away. This one, the things that you're saying make sense, and I can see where you're coming from. And you're probably even right. But just on a surface level, when you think about landing, like, if I put my foot on the ground, it leaves an imprint. If I turn the wheels of a bicycle, it leaves an imprint in the dust. If I, put my truck in reverse where the tires were, you can see it in the grass. I hear you. The gravity thing, I get it.
Here's another way to think about that. One, the camera quality was terrible.
Verified, yes.
Neil Armstrong had to look out the window of the lander to kind of see where to land, but he had a lot of trouble seeing because of all the dust that was on the moon. Like, you can hear him say when he first puts his foot on the surface, say it's really fine, like a powder. It's very powdery. And so it's really possible that with all the dust they kicked up, that it could have covered anything that would have appeared like that would have, any marks that would have been left.
Mm-hmm.
You've also got to remember there was bad camera quality, and they weren't taking pictures, like, of the actual, like, where the actual, I guess you could say, impact zone. Because I'm sure if you had taken up close pictures of it with a better quality camera, you would have seen evidence where they had landed.
That to me, that argument makes sense more than any other so far. That makes sense. But it's even hard. It's even hard on a side note to conceptualize for me that the technology existed all the way back in 1969 for someone to be on the moon and for folks to be able to be back at home in their living room and watch it on TV. It just seems...
Well, there was a 50-50 chance that they weren't going to make it back. Like,
Right.
There was a very good possibility. A lot of things went wrong with that mission, which I'm not going to get into, but there were a lot of technical flaws, things that went wrong.
Such as not landing on the moon? Is that what you're saying?
No, that is not. It would have been more difficult to fake it than it would have been to actually go there.
That's an interesting argument. We'll get to that one in a second. How about this? I think there's some validity in this one. This is one of the more common objections. I think that this is interesting. The Van Allen radiation belt. I know you're familiar with this.
They were not there long enough for it to have been an issue.
The astronauts had to cross what is called the Van Allen radiation belt en route to the moon. This belt is held together by the Earth's magnetic field. This should have been fatal to the astronauts passing through this belt despite the aluminum coating in the space shuttle. And of course it says NASA countered the claim by saying the amount of time, this is what you're saying, that the astronauts took to pass through the belt was minimal, and hence the radiation experienced by them was less. A lot of people question whether or not anyone could even pass through the belt at all, the Van Allen radiation belt at all, with any amount of time, if you could even go through it. The argument is that the amount of radiation you would receive just by passing through it would be fatal to you. Do you not find any validity in that at all?
No, because they would have not even attempted if there was like that big of a risk, or they would have figured out something, whether it was some way to protect from the radiation, or really not even protect from it as much as reduce the amount that was there. They were not in it long enough for it to be dangerous, because there is a certain limit of the amount of radiation that an astronaut can like experience, and whatever the word you want to call it. There's a certain amount like that they can be exposed to, and that's like their lifetime career amount. So
like once they hit that amount, they have to retire.
Go back into space where they'll be exposed to radiation.
Right. Now I do take one thing you said if it had been a question of them maybe if that might be fatal to pass through it all, they wouldn't have done it. They did try to go to the moon, and they did not know that for all they knew they might blow up in orbit. They might not be able to get back. They might so I mean they did. If we're assuming that they went to the moon, they did do some things that could have been fatal.
Keyword could. If the Van Allen belts were like to the point where it's definitely going to kill you, they wouldn't have done it, or they would have figured out a way around it. With the moon
if
landing,
they knew,
they had already landed things on the moon before.
Yeah,
and they took everything in steps. So from the very beginning, from designing the rockets, I don't know if you've heard. I think it was, I can't remember. I want to say it was Apollo 3, which was never like going into space. It was an accident that occurred when it was on Earth, and they were testing out a potential lunar lander, and the pressurized oxygen in the lander caught fire.
Oh yeah, I do remember hearing about this.
Nylon straps melted to them.
Yep.
And killed them all.
Yeah.
And since after that, and then from pretty much, or from every step there, they tested everything. Like, technically, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin weren't the first people to reach the moon. That had been done, I think it had been done by the Russians too, by the Soviet Union. But NASA also had missions to just go orbit the moon and make sure they knew how they could get back. So they tested every little thing. Which
is also one of the arguments for why we would even, like, what is the impetus to fake a moon landing? One of the arguments is this kind of space race with the Soviets, that we needed some good press, some good publicity. We needed some things that we could go rah, rah, yeah, America about. We needed our technology to be superior. If the moon landing had been faked, let's just say, I know you don't think it was, but let's just say it had been. We found out for sure it was faked. Do you think that would have been a valid reason, or a reason that you could see, well, yeah, that's why they did it?
Why they faked it because they couldn't make it, and they wanted to one-up the Soviet Union?
They wanted to one-up the Soviets.
So here's the thing about the space race. What one side did, the other soon followed. The space race started with the launch of Sputnik. I think it had a number attached to it, which was just a communications satellite, first ever man-made satellite.
Right.
Followed that with the first man in space, Yuri Gagarin. And the U.S. was well behind by the time that Yuri Gagarin went into space.
Yes, we were. So
their plan was, hey, let's go to the moon.
Let's one-up the Soviets.
Let's one-up the Soviets.
Let's prove our dominance on an international scale.
The Soviets followed with they were supposedly going to try to have a manned moon landing. They never could make it actually happen because of flaws within the Soviet Union and attempted communism, which is a topic of another podcast.
Coming soon.
So until the moon landing actually happened, there was a pretty big assumption that the Soviets would still go after that. They would still try to go.
Right.
So if they faked it, what would have happened if the Soviets did make it, and would have proved that the moon landing had in fact been fake. It would have just that whole, if it was like a hoax, that would have been exposed immediately the second the Soviets touched foot on the moon, or
That's true.
were able to at least get good pictures of the surface of the moon.
That's true. That's actually a very good point. I'm not sure I've heard it put that way, or that I haven't heard it raised that way. But that's actually a good point. That's a good argument.
Can I just throw a little side thought out in there?
Yeah, absolutely.
So America wanted to win the space race. When Yuri Gagarin, the Soviet Union, went into space, America decided to go to the moon. I personally wish that the Soviet Union had landed on the moon first, because America wouldn't have just given up. And I honestly think they would have next tried going to Mars. So just one of those little personal things, but that's the way I've always thought about it. I think it would have been better in the long run, because I think we would have gone to Mars. And a lot of astronauts, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin included, say they thought that they could have definitely made it to Mars after maybe 10 or 15 more years.
Hey, you might have inadvertently just given somebody a script, some historical fiction where the Soviets make it first. I'm copywriting this live on air, where the Soviets make it first, and so then we alter our plan and go to Mars. And what do we find on Mars? But some extraterrestrial
We find
life.
the body of Karl Marx.
Yes, maybe. Jimmy Hoffa up there too. Okay, so what about this one? This objection, the unexplainable object. The fake moon landing supporters pointed out another anomaly, a floating object's reflection in an astronaut's helmet in a photograph from Apollo 12 mission. The mystery remains as to why there was a floating object in the moon's atmosphere, as there is no air on the moon.
I would have to see the exact picture to know which one it is, because I've seen a lot of the pictures that people point to.
Yeah.
If it's what I'm thinking it is, I believe that it was concluded that it was just a reflection, that because you've got to stop and think of the shape of the astronauts, the front, whatever you want to call it, the front glass faceplate thing.
Like the visor part, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Think about its shape and the way that things would have reflected off of that.
And I don't find a lot of credibility in this one necessarily. It's a reflection of something. We can't tell what it is. The picture is interesting, but that's all it is interesting. Objection number 7, lack of stars in the photo. I hear this one a lot.
You would get to this one.
I hear this one a lot. One most damning argument is the lack of stars in the moon landing photos. Since there are no clouds on the moon, the stars should be more visible and brighter than they appear on Earth. All right, take it away.
Okay, so have you ever been out in the city at night?
Yes.
Okay, you know how you can maybe only see 1 or 2 stars?
Yes, and then you go in the
they're
country
only
and
the
you see
brightest
them all.
stars. Usually what you can normally see is, I think it's Arcturus, and you can see the planet Venus, because Venus is the second brightest object in the sky.
Venus Williams.
Sure. When they took the pictures of the moon's surface is made of what's called regolith, and it is highly, highly reflective. And you know how, like, the moon, when we're on Earth and we look at the moon, it's super bright. It's not super bright because it makes its own light source. It's because it reflects the light of the sun, because the surface is so reflective.
Right.
So think about when you go out in the city and you can't see the stars because of all the lights. It's called light pollution. When you're on the moon, you have these direct sunlight reflecting off of you, off the moon, back up into the sky, because the moon is basically just it's kind of like a big light. It just is reflective.
Allegedly.
Well, I think even people that think the moon landing was fake would accept that the moon is reflective, considering how well we can see it.
Yeah, no, it is. And I think you very easily in like 10 seconds explained this one away, just with that analogy, because if you go into the city, you see no stars. You go out into the country, you see all the stars. And
exactly.
If
you were on the dark side of the moon, you would be able to see a lot more stars.
Yeah, that very easily puts that one to bed. That one, I hear that one a lot. Like, that one gets raised all the time. Not the most compelling of evidence, and like you said, it's easily explained. How about this one? This one I find very interesting. I don't know the backstory on it. I have seen the pictures and the photos. So I'll say it, and then let me read the description, then you can reply. The Sea Rock. One seemingly concrete proof of evidence is the Sea Rock photo. A seemingly innocent rock has the letter C engraved into it. Theorists use this as evidence of a prop being marked for placement and then mistakenly photographed from a wrong angle. Go ahead. What you got on the sea rock?
It is just a mark on the rock. Humans have this amazing ability to see things that are familiar to them. I don't know if you ever heard of the face that was on Mars at one point.
Yes, and also spiders, but yes.
Yes, and like the Yeti and the trees. Humans see things, and your brain will try to make you think that you're seeing something familiar to you, which is why they thought they saw the face or the trees on Mars. All that is it's just a mark on the rock that was on the moon. And the brain wants to be like, oh, that's the letter C. You know, that's a letter that was put there. But stop and think for a second. If they did fake it, they would have very, very carefully looked through every single photo that they released.
You would think so.
And I find it very hard to believe that they would have let something like that slip.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean...
If you're spending all this money on this hoax, you're not going to let something like that slip up.
Maybe
you actually take the picture, but you're not going to accidentally release it.
It's not proof. I don't even know that this qualifies as evidence, but it's at least interesting. The fact that they have something that credibly looks like the letter C, and it's like, hey, why is there a letter on this rock on the moon? What does it mean? We do try to fill in the blanks. We do try to find reasons. We do try to explain it away. And
it's just like how you see shapes in the clouds. Exact same concept.
Or when your SpaghettiOs spell out words. I mean, things happen.
You see the flying spaghetti monster.
Yeah. Okay, what about this one? Layered crosshairs. The cameras used by the astronauts had crosshairs in order to add in scaling and direction, though in some photos they appear to be behind some objects. Theorists say that NASA doctored genuine moon photos and digitally added the man-made objects. So what about this argument that pictures have been duplicated, that they've been digitally altered, that they are not genuine photographs?
Well, I think the same argument of how would they let something like that, because I think I know the pictures you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
How would they let something like that slip? You know, second, because I haven't heard too much about like this one. I mean, I know what it is. I just haven't heard it talked about too much. My first thought would be there's a bunch of black and white shapes on the moon, and it would be very easy for an optical illusion to occur.
Right.
Or where some color like fades in and makes it look like the crosshair is actually in front of something, when in reality you just can't see it because there's the contrasting colors. And again, like I just go back to how would they let something like that slip?
And I think that I'm right in saying this. I'm not stating this as a fact. I'm saying that this is something I think is true. I do not know. I would have to look it up to verify it. I do think that there is at least one instance where NASA put out a photo when it comes to the moon landing that they then later had to backtrack when people pointed out that it was a fake and that it was not taken on the moon, where they then were like, oh, actually this was a promo picture that had been taken before we left, and it accidentally got released as a part of this trove of pictures. I think that actually happened. Do you remember hearing something like that?
I've heard people say that about the pictures of the Earth, because a lot of the pictures you can find on NASA's website of the pictures of the Earth are like digitally created.
Yeah.
I have not heard that about the moon.
I would have to look it up, but I think if that did happen, if that's not just another part of this that doesn't pan out, if that really did happen, it certainly would be a mistake, even if it was just an accident. It's an unfortunate accident to have when you already have a bunch of people that don't believe you actually went to the moon. Like, it's an unfortunate thing if it happened.
And then you think about it, they addressed that. So if that did happen, like they accidentally put the promo thing, whatever,
right?
They addressed it. Why would they not have fake addressed everything else, every other thing that people called like bullcrap on?
And who was it? Was it Buzz Aldrin that punched the moon landing denier in the face?
Mm-hmm. He also likes, I'm going to use profanity for 1 second to quote a shirt that he wears.
All right,
so we can edit that out if needed. He has a shirt that he's worn before that says, "Get your ass to Mars."
Well, Elon Musk is going to take care of that, I think. I think he will. And the last one on this list, and we can move to some closing arguments of sorts. the backdrop is duplicated. This is the most compelling evidence shown by the theorists of fake moon landing. It shows two different photos taken by the Apollo 12 mission. Despite being different photos, they have similar backdrops. Have you seen these two photos side by side by chance?
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay, what's the explanation?
All I can say is that one can't really be explained away too well. Like that, I will give the moon landing is fake people credit for.
This is the one. This is the one right here. This is the one
that single-handedly proves it.
No, but this is the one that makes you go, huh? Because these two, I mean, you go stand anywhere. I don't care if you've got gravity or not. Wherever, any type of landscape, take two pictures, one after the other, different days, different times. They're not going to be identical. There's going to be something that's different in the backdrop because of the atmosphere, because of the weather, because of your angle, because of the motion of your body when you're taking the picture, because of the camera. And so for these two to be side by side and the backdrop to be exactly the same, it kind of makes you say,
I have heard it been put forward. I don't know how credible this is, that it was most likely because due to an optical illusion kind of thing, where it looked like they were in a much different place, but the background was still the same. But that is one. I haven't looked into that one too much. I've just heard about it. So
this is one.
I have to get back to you on that one.
Most of those I could write off, or you have even explained some of these away pretty easily. This is one without extra research I don't have an explanation for.
So I have a friend because me and him have talked about this before. He's studying something having to do with space. I can't quite remember. Something to do with space and rockets and stuff. And me and him talked about it, and what he said he thinks is that some of the pictures didn't come out as well as they wanted. So yes, they went to the moon, but they may have faked some of the pictures to make them look better because they didn't have enough good stuff to release.
And I think,
look, we spent $30 billion and we got a bunch of crappy pictures.
And I think that is not only likely, I think that that's what happened. And if I had to guess, I would say that is what is at the root of this whole conspiracy theory. Is that they did fake some of the pictures so that they would have more noteworthy and better pictures. And then people realized that some of those pictures didn't quite add up. And then the conspiracy was born. Also, just the fact that it's so hard to believe when we look up in the sky and see the moon that human beings have actually been there. It's a hard thing to conceptualize. And so it's easy to believe that maybe we didn't actually go. What do you make? Let me ask you this. What do you make of the whole line of thinking? We haven't talked about this yet. Stanley Kubrick. The whole line of thinking that actually it was done in the studio, that he faked it, that he was the one directing the whole moon landing, faking of the moon landing. What do you think about that whole thing?
It would have been harder to have faked it than actually going there. And if you think about this in multiple ways, one, the video editing and this, if you can even call it CGI back then, was terrible. I mean, it was terrible.
True, verifiably so.
Of all the people that would have been involved, that they would have had to have kept quiet if they had faked it. Everybody at NASA, everybody that was involved with it. And I just, by now something would have come out. They would have had enough money in the world to keep that many people quiet for that long.
Yeah.
So something definitely would have come out by now if that had happened.
So you put no stock in that possibility either.
No.
So give your closing argument. If somebody were to come to you and say, your elevator speech 30 seconds or less, like, hey, I don't believe that we went to the moon. I don't see how it was possible. The whole thing was fake. What would be your kind of closing argument to bring it all home and say, no, this definitely happened?
So two things. I think it was on the Apollo 11 mission, the first mission, they put this mirror on the moon. And now from Earth, because they know where the coordinates on the moon were to that, they can shine a laser to the moon and they can reflect it back and get just a small fraction of the photons.
Really? This I've never heard before. I've actually literally never heard this before.
Yeah, you can look it up. So they can shine a laser. I can send you the link to the video on YouTube of them doing it. They talked about it on the Big Bang Theory, but they got all of that of how it would have worked completely wrong. But yeah, there's a mirror that they can shine onto the moon, or a mirror they can shine a laser onto that's on the moon that reflects the light back.
Yeah, send me that link and I'll post it on our Twitter.
Yeah, well, definitely. Other thing, they brought moon rocks back.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Did they though?
Moon rocks
Did they?
went to different science institutions around the country, including the, at the time, Soviet Union.
So,
Different
okay.
scientists from around the world had analyzed them and said, yeah, this did not come from Earth.
So you're saying that essentially, if it had been fake, of all people, the Soviets would have had a field day in saying, no, these did not come from the moon. But
absolutely.
even they said this is not from Earth.
Yes.
Okay. If you had to give a percentage, what percentage between 0 and 100 are you that we landed on the moon?
100%.
100%. Not 99.9, 100%.
No, there is no doubt in my mind. I would bet my life on that.
You would bet your life. You would bet your life. There's very little I would bet my life on. You would bet your life on this.
Yeah, because I'm so confident that we did go that it's nothing to worry about.
So this is my scale of how I ask people, like, when they have a belief, if it's real or not, right? This is what I say. If you were to bet on the moon landing, on the fact that it actually happened, and if you are correct, you would get $50,000. But if you are not correct and it was faked, every dollar you ever made for the rest of your life will be taken from you. Would you place that bet?
Oh, yeah.
For real?
Oh, yeah. I have no doubt about that.
Look, I like to rile you up. I like to argue with you about the moon landing. Actually, we kept it pretty civil on here compared to in real life, didn't we?
Pretty much, yeah.
Usually we devolve into shouting matches in good spirits, good-natured.
Yeah, let's go with that.
But really, I don't know. I don't know that we went to the moon just because I haven't been to the moon. If I had to make a bet, I would side with you and say that we probably did. There is a small part of me that does doubt it just because it is such a hard thing to conceptualize. And because, it's hard for me to even understand basic technology, let alone things on that scale. Now I see, these billionaires and rich people, quote unquote, going into space, which really just means they go higher than the airplanes.
Yeah, no, Jeff Bezos did not actually go to space.
No, he did not. And his spaceship was shaped like something I can't talk about because this is a family show.
And that is a great example of how Jeff Bezos is. And I do not hate Jeff Bezos because he's a billionaire. That has nothing to do with it. If you just do a little research on the way that he is suing NASA because they gave SpaceX the contract for the lunar lander and Bezos got all mad through his fit because he didn't get picked.
We talked about that on the show. Yeah.
Off the ground, really.
Yeah, we covered that exact thing on the show. Yeah, that was ridiculous. So, I mean, I would, if I had to put a number on it, I would probably be about at a 94%, somewhere in there. Like, I think it's most likely and overwhelmingly most likely that we went to the moon, especially seeing how we're able to travel and the things that we're able to do now when it comes to space exploration, the things that we have left behind, even some of the points that you've raised. Mostly, I think this is just a fun thing to think about and to conceptualize what if it had been faked. It's a bit of fun fan fiction, history fan fiction. I know a lot of people that genuinely are convinced that we never went to the moon. And
they really don't like me because I will shut down every argument they have about it.
And a couple people, actually, we did an episode on Flat Earth on this show, and I had a couple people email the show and talk about the moon landing in regards to Flat Earth. I didn't even mention that on here because the Earth is definitely not flat. I don't believe that. I do listen. So, I like to listen to this stuff. If you have an argument for why the Earth is flat, if you think that the moon landing was faked, if you want to talk about the JFK conspiracy, if you want to, whatever it is, I find this stuff interesting. That's why I have a show about it. I find this stuff interesting, so I like to listen to it. And there was a period of time where I was amazed that people still believe that the Earth is flat after all this time. So I was listening to this stuff, and my wife would be like, "Are you listening to the flat earth stuff again?" She's like, "You are not a flat earther, are you? You're not going to become one of them. You can't." I was like, "Baby, the earth is round. I know this. And she was like, oh my gosh, it's spherical. And then she left the room.
She wasn't wrong.
No, it's a globe. It's not just round, but I thought that was pretty funny. I just like to hear this stuff, but I like to give you a hard time specifically about this because you get riled up because you're into space and all. But no, I agree with you. I think one thing that I'm learning as I get older and as I mature is how little I actually know and how little I'm actually sure of. And I'm willing to consider almost anything. Even if I don't agree with it, I'm willing to entertain it and to think it through, to think about the logics of it. And so I'll stop at about 94, 95% just to leave a little bit of room for some crazy stuff that can't be predicted that goes against logic. But yeah, in all honesty, in all earnesty, I would say that yes, we did go to the moon. And I think that you and I have basically put this to bed tonight. What do you think?
I think we have, and just for the record, I told you that I would never lose this argument.
You did say that. And maybe I will find.
Maybe I will. Going on for years.
Maybe I will find the smoking gun that proves at some point in time.
Give it 15, 20 years, and we can have the same conversation about if we actually landed on Mars. That's actually one thing I'm kind of excited to see. Or see the conspiracy theories that we didn't go to Mars once we finally go. That would be dope. For sure. Well, Joshua, we certainly appreciate you joining us in the shed tonight over the phone, being our third ever guest on the podcast. It's been a lot of fun. I hope you've had a good time chopping it up with us. Before we go and we close the show, do you have anything else that you want to say or any social media that you want to promote or anything that you want to get out there for yourself? Yeah, if you'll I plug my Twitter and I'll have to check and see what it is. But if you'll just plug my Twitter, it's Joshua.Teasley. So
Joshua.Teasley. Go follow.
Joshua Teasley. There's no dot in there. I don't know why I said that.
There's no dot. It's just Joshua Teasley. Teasley is like T-E-A and then S-L-E-Y. Is that right?
That is correct.
Nailed it. Well, thank you for joining our show, Josh. It's been a pleasure. I love you. You're a good dude, and I had a lot of fun hanging out with you tonight.
Great to talk to you. Love you too, man. It was fun talking about conspiracy theories, not talking about sports, politics.
Go sports.
It's been fun. I was glad to be here.
Absolutely. We'll have you on again in the future for sure.
All right. I'm here.
Well, that's all for this week. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. I can't either. It's back in the house and out of the shed for me. Thanks again for listening to episode 25. Make sure to subscribe, like, share, and review. It really does help. If you have any paranormal experiences, opinions about sports, or politics that you'd like to share, you can email the show at intheshedwithwes@gmail.com. Again, that's intheshedwithwes@gmail.com. I might even read it on air. Look for us on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, or wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure to follow us on Twitter at InTheShed4. Tune in again next week when we'll hit the headlines, talk some college and NFL football, and take a deep dive into the case of D.B. Cooper. This has been In the Shed with Wes Anderson, the best news show in the land covering politics, sports, and the paranormal. Have an adventurous and fulfilling weekend. I'll catch you tools later. Peace out, Boy Scout. Meemaw, we made it.